across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you. Julia back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. What have we got this afternoon? It's absolutely rammed at this end. You would have clocked this story already. I know Julia's touched on this. Asylum seekers to be handed 10 grand bills for their hotel and benefit costs under new rules from Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, with migrants barred from permanent settlement until the debt is repaid. Permanent settlement. I'll come into the detail of this. It's laughable in just a second. Analysis also reveals that ECHR protected migrants cost the taxpayer 4.9 billion quid over their lifetimes. These numbers are jaw-dropping. They're telephone numbers, right? They're just jaw-dropping, and we just keep accepting it and we move on. Details to come. Andy Burnham's plan to run Britain part-time from Manchester is drawing fierce criticism, with opponents branding this so-called Manchesterism a dangerous new form of socialism. I don't think we should apologise for the fact that there is a place called Westminster. That's where the Houses of Parliament are, so that's where you might find politicians. And Keir Starmer has failed to deny reports that 9 billion quid earmarked for military housing has been raided to fund his defence investment plan, raising questions about whether serving personnel are footing the bill for a last-minute spending reshuffle. What is this going to look like in practice? We'll bring you all of this, all the breaking news as it happens, right here on Talk. The numbers you need, 0344 499 1000. So, we've heard it all before. Remember Rishi?
Stop the boats.
And Keir.
Smash the gangs.
Yeah, how many more weird initiatives and meaningless promises can we stomach? Even the Chancellor, Boomerang Rach, has tried to pretend she's on our side.
Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money spent on housing asylum seekers in hotels, leaving people in limbo and shunting the cost of failure onto local communities. We won't let that stand. So I can confirm today that, led by the work of my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, we will be ending the costly use of hotels to house asylum seekers in this Parliament.
Yeah, instead, we'll put them into £250,000 homes in East Shropshire. Sod the locals, forget the homeless, ignore the veterans. Let's give away some brand spanking new homes to some identified people who floated across the channel on a rubber boat. This stuff is beyond parody, beyond satire. And now here's the Home Secretary's latest bright idea to make you think that the government are listening. Let asylum seekers pay back around 10,000 quid once they start working. Sounds fantastic in a press release. Tough, fair, taxpayers getting something back until you spend about 30 seconds looking at the numbers. This is laughable. The government's own evidence shows that years after being granted refugee status, fewer than half are actually in any kind of work at all. And even those that are working in jobs that are so badly paid that they would never ever function or be given a bill to pay back the 10 grand. In fact, only 13% will be earning around about £20,000 a year 5 years after being granted asylum. So that's 20 grand a year, all right? That's below the minimum wage, or below the average wage. So 83% of those granted asylum will never be in a position to ever pay the money. Now, that's hardly a goldmine for the Treasury, right? So exactly who is this policy supposed to collect money from? It feels like it's another classic Home Office announcement. Big headline, tough language, tiny, if not invisible, returns. We've seen it all before. Rwanda, hotel pledges, backlog promises, illegal migration targets, grand announcements followed by legal battles, bureaucracies and endless delays. If ministers genuinely want to cut the bill, here's a revolutionary suggestion. process the claims faster, remove those who've got no right to be here immediately, and those that are somehow qualified to do an amazing job and contribute to this country, we can consider their application. But instead, we're promised another scheme that sounds brilliant on the front pages, but is likely to recover peanuts while creating another mountain of paperwork. I promise you this will never see the light of day, and even if it did, it will cost more than it gets back. It isn't serious government. It's government by headline, and that's what we're getting. And the Home Office, yet again, seems far better at launching initiatives than delivering them. So when you hear the likes of Rishi...
Stop the boats.
And Keir...
Smash the gangs.
And now Mahmood, ignore them, because they're flipping lying to you. 0344 499 1000. How would you solve the immigration crisis? I know this is a really obvious question. If you were doing media studies at university and you had to kind of mock up a programme like this, perish the poor students who've got to go through this malarkey unpaid, and you came up with the title, How Do We Solve the Immigration Crisis? You'd be kicked off the course. You're too route one, mate. You can't ask that. It's too simple a question. Get gritty. Come on, get more media. Sometimes there is only one question. How do you solve the immigration crisis? Lines are open on that. You can message 87222. Charlie Rowley is with us, a regular, of course, here on Talk, to talk through the big headlines of the day. How are you, Charlie Rowley?
I'm very good. I thought you were going to ask me, how do you solve the migrant crisis? Well, I thought, don't ask me.
What is he? He was just a former government advisor. Yeah. What the hell does he know?
I thought I was coming in to talk about the weather.
Well, indeed, you came in. You almost had. Dare I say, Charlie, I'm not aging you or anything with this, you actually came in with a hot flush.
I did. One side of you down the corridor, and I came over all queer.
It's easy done, isn't it? Oh, dear. We've gone down the carry-on route again. We do it very, very quickly. And why not? But the country is richer for that kind of humour.
Well, you're right. Given some of the stories today, you're right. They're quite meaty, aren't they?
Well, they are. I mean, and this one about... I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry when I read this stuff, because you look at the details of this and the Home Office going, you've got to pay back the money that we've paid you to be in the hotel. Give us back our 10,000 quid. There is so many things wrong with this, apart from the fact that 83% of people who would be given refugee status will never be in any kind of job, or certainly not one that will pay anything like the money that she's talking about. They'll never be in a position to pay. Even those that are in jobs that pay around about 20,000 quid, what are they going to ask to pay on that? Like, what, a £5 a month or something? You've got to pay back 10,000 quid. It's going to take you a long time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this doesn't really sync with some of the other things Shabana Mahmood has said, who has been very tough. As a Labour Home Secretary goes, she has been tougher than most to clamp down on illegal immigration, and some of the measures she set out, which includes only a time-limited period for people who have leave to remain in the UK. They have to go after about 5 years anyway, or 10 years. So that was one of her plans, one of her proposals. Probably another Home Office gimmick just to grab the headlines that you talked about. But if that's the case, then you could quite literally turn up, and if you're granted asylum, OK, you could then stick around for 5-10 years, not have to work. You could be on benefits, state support, and then leave voluntarily without having to pay any of it back. So none of these schemes quite add up if you put them all together. But there is an element of, I think people would appreciate, yes, of course, if you come to the country to seek asylum and if you've been given support, then you can pay it back over a period of time if you're granted permission to stay and you start working. That's not a bad thing, but I think you're absolutely right. The key question that you asked is who should be coming here in the first place? How do we solve the crisis? And, who should we be granting asylum to? Because it seems as though that there are an awful lot of people from an awful lot of countries that just want to come here. Yeah,
I mean, it's just one initiative after the other, though, isn't it? And, when we heard the little clips we just played there, Rachel Reeves saying, just to compound this curious story of ineptitude, really, we have this bizarre situation where I think it's 80 asylum seekers are going to be going into about 86 asylum seekers are going to be moved to £250,000 homes in a nice part of leafy Shropshire. 21 homes have been earmarked. These are brand new homes. And you have to think to yourself, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, no matter where you are on immigration, is it right that 80 people who've arrived relatively recently in the UK are given a brand spanking new £250,000 home when there's a council waiting list around the corner, there's veterans sleeping in shop doorways, and there's people who would quite like to be just considered for the list, let alone the home? I mean, how did we arrive in this place? This is an insanity, Charlie.
Well, and it's the grasping of the levers that are available when people, you know, in the Home Office, as you say, have tried to work out a plan to move people out of hotels, for example, because we had all of the Ferrari over the hotel accommodation, and rightly so. People shouldn't be just housed in hotels, definitely, which is a bigger cost to the taxpayer. So they've now looked for HMOs and houses of multiple occupancy, but only houses that are available on council waiting lists. And if a council has just said to their to the government, oh, we've got actually about 8 or however many houses here, probably a bit more than that in this case, but you know, there could be 10s here, there could be a handful there, all over the country, depending on how much stock is available per council that they've told the government. Then of course the government will say, great, right, we can house these people here without even knowing probably the size of the house or the value. But it's for the council then to actually say no to the government. We don't have the occupancy here because the houses that we do have that should be available are for exactly the right people that you've just talked about. Veterans that have put on that uniform to serve our country who are sleeping rough. That breaks my heart, you know, and it will do everyone, because you know, these are people that have, you know, given their lives to defend our country and our freedoms, and yet they're, as you said, at the back of the queue. I mean,
it just, I'm just going to repeat myself. I mean, but the platitudes and the crazy promises and the initiatives, and you know, when Rachel Reeves said we are going to, you know, we're going to end this outrageous idea of paying people to be in hotels. We're just going to pay them to be in houses. I mean, you can't. But is any politician really that stupid? I mean, did no spad around Big Rach say, look, you know, this is going to sound a bit weird, really, because it makes it sound as if you are saving money, but actually you're going to be just putting these people into homes of multiple occupancy or brand new places in Shropshire.
No, I totally. And the optics matter, because that's what then, I'm afraid, you know, gets people very angry, and rightly so. You know, can you imagine where you know in your local community, you've been there for years and years and years, you've brought up a family there, they've gone to the local school, you know your local GP, it's a nice area, it might not even be a nice area, but you know the people, you go to the local pub, you know, you've got a community there, and then you know the problems within that community, as you say before, people who might be sleeping rough, families that might be on hard times, big families, you know, a single mum with 2 or 3 kids might need a bit of temporary accommodation, might need a bit of temporary housing that is available on your street. Then all of a sudden you have potentially, and I don't want to stoke the pot too much, but, you know, we read about it, you know, potentially people coming out of the hotels, about 10 or so men who don't speak English, who don't know how to integrate, who can't integrate, who wouldn't integrate. That creates a division in a community. That's what then stokes, I think, division and fear, and it shouldn't be happening. You know, the government should be absolutely clear who it should be taking into the country. And I do think that is, I think there has to be a higher threshold, frankly. If you're fleeing a country that's actually war-torn, like we did for Ukrainians, perfectly acceptable. But I think if you're just hopping on trotting through all the way through Europe to then get to the UK... Lots of different countries, and you're from Eritrea, say, a country that I don't know very much about, which I'm sure
we're not at war with.
We're not at war with, who many people wouldn't know much about Eritrea, and it is quite far away. I think we can actually legitimately say, no, there'll be other support available closer to you to get the support that you might actually need. It's not for the UK to pick up that responsibility.
Very harsh, Charlie.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's come over me.
Honestly. A smidgen of harshness from Charlie Rowley. Let's move... We are asking the question, how do we solve this crisis? Because it's just getting ridiculous, and I don't sense that... the new Prime Minister is likely to take this into any new territory where we'll go, Burnham has gone and solved it. Speaking of him, the next PM wants to do the job part-time from Manchester. Friends of Andy Burnham say he plans to spend a day or two a week in his old stomping ground, running the country from number 10 North, he calls the nerve centre of government. Others have a different name for it. Manchesterism, apparently, and it seems like a dangerous new form of socialism.
We will create a more streamlined state with a clearer purpose to power up all parts of the country and put a laser-like focus on growth and regeneration, good growth. The change will be driven through the Prime Minister's office in an extended operation based here in Manchester.
That's great, but Westminster is in London. I don't think we should sort of let that basic fact run away from this debate. The Houses of Parliament are in Westminster. The civil service and the various departments, health, defence, are in Westminster. They're in Whitehall, Westminster. I don't know what he wants to do about that. Does he want to move the Houses of Parliament to Deansgate? What's the thinking here?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think he's trying to move on what the Tories were doing, the last Conservative government, where they had this levelling up agenda, that term that people heard repeatedly but probably never quite felt, because it's you need a lot of time to level up the entire country. And again, Boris Johnson wanted 10 years, Keir Starmer wanted 10 years, now Andy Burnham says give me a decade. I don't know why things take 10 years, but there we are. That's just the way things work in this country, or don't work.
I mean, give me 10 years. It's like, not give me a chance. Give me a decade.
Yeah, I mean,
a long time.
Oh, quite right. And I remember under the last government, we did try to move out government departments. I mean, I think that the last Tory government was a bit too clever by half, because they started to move, for example, the Home Office to Stoke and the Treasury to Darlington, rather than go to the big cities first, who will then hopefully bleed out more economic support to local areas, for example. So go to Birmingham and you hope that can impact on Wolverhampton, for example, rather than going to Wolverhampton directly. But put that aside, I think he does want to move things out of London and across the country. The problem you've got with that is that we already have a problem in London where people don't turn up to the office anyway. People are working from home. You can't find, when there is a national crisis, when the waters, south-east water, south-west water is going awry, and you need to get on the phone to, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and you can't get hold of anybody because someone's working from home in Bury or it's bizarre. So how on earth he's going to be able to move everything out of London, decentralise the state, and yet expect all things to be firing on all cylinders? I'm not sure how it's
I just don't really know what it achieves. I mean, the symbolism of the Prime Minister being in a different place, I mean, are people that delicate that they need to see, oh, look, he's here in Middlesbrough or Weymouth? And by the way, talking of the southwest, which, by the way, is further away from London than Manchester. So if you're down there in Penzance, which is like a 5-hour train journey, as distinct from Manchester, which is a 2-hour train journey from London, then I think surely you could make the same argument. I mean, somebody messaged us yesterday and said, is there going to be a number 10 Essex?
Oh, well.
Sounds like an iffy nightclub, doesn't it?
I don't think there's even a number 10 bus to Essex at the minute.
Very good.
But you're absolutely right. This always happens. Governments try and do... I mean, I remember cabinets used to sit in different parts of the country. So once a month, I think, whoever the Prime Minister of the day, Gordon Brown, David Cameron, they used to have cabinet meetings.
What a lot of
in
old
different
crap.
parts of the...
Seriously. Have you ever heard anything like it? I mean, in bloody Brussels, they've got... most people don't realise, but they've got 2 parliaments. You know this, Charlie. They've got 2 parliaments. They're in Brussels, they're in Strasbourg as well. And they literally filing cabinets into trucks. Yep. Is it once a week or once every other week or something like that?
I think it's about once a month, isn't it?
They lob it all into a truck. They take their offices on the road into France so they can say, oh, look, we do move around. Well, if you're in southern Italy, swivel, frankly, because, that doesn't really tick a box for the southern Italians or the Spanish, or even when we used to be in the EU back in the day. What's the deal with that? It's just a waste of money.
Total waste of money and taxpayers' money, and it doesn't deliver. I don't think people care where the Prime Minister is or where they sit, as long as people feel the effects of what they're doing, which is hopefully cutting taxes so people can feel more prosperous, where we see growth in the economy, which can be redistributed, and you can see that economic growth, where crime is cut, where the asylum, illegal immigration stuff sort of comes to an end, where the NHS is firing on all cylinders, when we're actually having an education system system that is going to set our young people up for the future, where we're building the homes for young people to get on the housing ladder, like people had and their parents and their grandparents might have had in the past, and where we have an adult social care system that looks after people in their older age. That's not too much to ask, I don't think. I don't think. But the one thing I will say about Andy, which is why this is slightly problematic from the get-go, is because Andy Burnham, like Boris, has been a mayor of a city, great city, where central government has given him pots of money where he's been able to distribute, and he might have spent it quite well. But in central government, you know, you are the First Lord of the Treasury. That's what it says on the letterbox at number 10. You've got to manage the economic finances of the country. You can't just splash the cash. You know, he's been someone who's been receiving money and spending money very well. He's now got to be able to stop spending and get value for money and actually work out how to grow an economy to get the money rather than tax, borrow and increase the debt.
Charlie Rowley is with us. We'll have more from him in a couple of moments. Comments on all of that. I mean, I think the Manchester thing is fascinating because, you know, we could then just have the same argument, couldn't we? Well, what about outside of Manchester? And so it goes on. 0344 499 at 1000, your thoughts on that. And how do we solve the immigration crisis? The latest initiative from the Home Office is, to coin a phrase, pants. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's not even... The scaffolding of the argument is so weak it collapses upon first point of scrutiny. So we'll talk more about that as well. Your thoughts, lines are open. This is Talk.
Old news. On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham. Just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
0344 499 1000. It's a shame that wasn't on air, that was. It was too funny. This from Paul, who says number 10A Downing Street will just be a further excuse to waste billions of our pounds and to employ even more civil servants walking their dogs from home. Paul is not Downing Street. Oh, Paul in not Downing Street, near Belfast, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that, because aside from anything else, you've got another tier of bureaucracy if you do this. So you've got not only Greater Manchester and the mayoral kind of bit, you've got all the boroughs, you've got county councils nearby, Lancashire and goodness knows what else. I mean, how many more tiers Because it'd be another level. There'd be hundreds of people working in this department.
Oh, totally. And, you know, you only get the best out of people and you can only really focus the mind. Everybody knows this is when you're in the office and when the boss is there. Now, if the boss is away, so if the Prime Minister is spending his, I don't know, part of the week in Manchester, then the staff in London will ultimately just take their foot off the gas. And we haven't got time for that.
True.
You know, we need, in a funny way, we need the opposite to happen. We need everything to come into one place where the Prime Minister can have his hand on all of the levers and be there to direct anybody and everybody in any which direction he wants to get the results and to put pressure on people to get the results, to see those results quickly, and that will impact on the country and hopefully change its fortunes for the better.
Which is true.
Thank you.
Keep in touch, Charlie.
See, if I was doing this down the line, I'd be, you know, who knows, I'd be going off an auto. But now I'm, you know, you've got your hands on the tiller, on the
absolutely, yes. We want, when we book Rowley, we want him in the studio because you don't know what's going to happen. You know, might not find him again. Anybody seen Rowley?
Oh, your legs over a skip somewhere.
Well, let's hope not. One of those huge bins, you know. It's like some Netflix show, isn't it? Former special advisor found in bin. Let's move to this story. This is Keir Starmer. One of Keir Starmer's final acts, and it's a big one, as Prime Minister, pledging billions for military equipment, including $5 billion for drones. But the plan falls $9 billion short of matching key NATO allies, with Britain set to spend just 2.69% of GDP on defence by 2030, compared to Germany's 3.7%, Sweden's 3.5%. Here's what the Prime Minister said this morning.
Before we came into office, so 2 years ago, this country spent £54 billion a year on defence. We are taking this to almost £80 billion a year by 2029. That is a real terms increase of 27%. From spending 2.3% of GDP on defence in 2024, we are raising it to 2.7%, putting us on a trajectory to reach 3% in the next Parliament.
So it's not enough, essentially. Now, the Conservatives don't get off lightly on this because they weren't putting enough in either. The reality is, and we were speaking to a military, Francis Tusi yesterday, military journalist, who's right across all of this, and we're in the same way that the German football team are not taken seriously anymore. But you see the German Chancellor who put out the congratulatory tweet saying, I'm very, very proud of our boys and they did well, even though they got knocked out by Maidstone United or something, which was rubbish. And everyone else in the country is going, no, we're not. Germany haven't been winners for a long, long time. We are losers in this field. We are losers, and we don't want the German Chancellor telling us that we're, you know, we should all be proud, because we're not proud. So Germans are really angry. Similarly, with we're in the same department with defence, which is slightly more serious the last time I looked, because everybody else is putting more money in. We used to be the powerhouse in this department, and we just aren't. There just isn't the money there, or they can't make the thing work. They can't balance the books.
It's madness. And what really frustrates me, more than anything else, I suppose, well, not only not having the defence the money available to spend on defence, which we absolutely should do, by the way, and there is no getting away from it. You can save in other departments where they're spending far too much money to just fund this shortfall, to get us up to the 3%. That's what our NATO allies are doing. That's what we promised that we would do. But for Keir Starmer, who I know is on the way out, and I know by his own admission he came to politics late, brackets, he doesn't do the politics very well. This should be the time. He's only got a couple of weeks left where he could be, and should be, cementing a new job. And it was touted the other day that he wants to be the head of NATO. So you would just think, for like,
you can't make this up.
Your last
the goal of the man.
Your last act of Prime Minister should be to fund defence. You can't suddenly then audition for a role to be the head of NATO, to then be calling Andy Burnham up to say you need to increase your defence. To which Andy would just say, well, you didn't. You know, Why are you telling me? And why am I
me
going to listen
for?
to you? Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. So just fund the defence, go out on a high, because he's got to spend every November now, Keir Starmer, at the Cenotaph for Remembrance Sunday.
Yes, he's going to still be down there as a former Prime Minister.
And a former Prime Minister with no legacy. Apart, this could have been the one final act that he says, you know what, I've lost a Defence Secretary over it, I'm going to right that wrong, I'm going to fund it fully, and at least he can sort of go out when he waves goodbye to the nation, hopefully without Steve Bray playing his music overhead again, he can actually say goodbye to the nation on good form and say, right, that's it, I'm off. With defence spending intact.
Why did you have to bring up Steve Bray, Charlie?
I'm so sorry. Is that a... Oh, I'm sorry. I've done it. That man...
He brought up Steve. He's brought up Steve Bray.
Not a friend of yours?
Someone's compared who to Barry Manilow? Oh, someone's compared Charlie Rowley to Barry Manilow. I think he meant to Steve Bray to Barry Manilow. Somebody thinks Charlie looks like Barry Manilow. You're a Barry Manilow fan?
Well,
Don't tell me you've got an anecdote on Barry Manilow.
I went to see Barry Manilow a couple of weeks ago, actually.
A couple of weeks ago, seriously?
And England were playing that evening, and I thought, no.
What, the same venue?
A friend of mine, he was at the O2. And,
I thought he was, like, I don't want to be unkind, I thought he was, like, really ill.
He has been ill, he has, and he didn't show it for most of the time that he was on stage.
Was he good?
He was very good,
Phenomenal.
actually. He was very good. I mean,
He has a big orchestra with him.
I was calling him Neil Diamond for most of the evening,
Really?
which the other fans around me didn't quite take to. But there's some bangers there, though.
There is, yes. And but he likes a bit of surgical enhancement, does our Barry.
Well,
and I did notice some pictures of him in the paper only a day or two ago. Did you see those, Finn? I mean, he looked like somebody had been at him with a Dyson. I don't know what the hell had gone on to the old face. I mean, it was, like, pretty scary stuff.
Well, the one thing that really sort of got to me was he's obviously been very open about his life now and who he is, and he's, you know, he's a gay man, but he still has a huge... Who knew?
That did come as a shock when Manilow came out. What, really?
But he has a huge female following.
Yes, he does.
But there is still, in one of the songs, there's a lyric where he sort of says, I think you can touch me, or if I touch by you.
Yeah.
And all the girls go, you know, they go, woo! They make this...
Yes!
They make that... A sound similar to that, I'm sure. Something like that.
I'm sure it was spot on.
And I thought, well, there's still hope. There's still hope.
There's still hope. Charlie, on that point, thank you very much.
And I can't smile without you, Ian.
I'll see you at the Copa. That is Charlie Rowley with us here on Talk 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Wow. 25 to 2, 0344 499 1000. This from Amanda, who says, this totally incompetent Labour government are harming the very people they're supposed to represent. Election now, please. I don't know whether Amanda is talking about immigration or talking specifically about the sort of Burnham idea of moving something geographically to in an attempt to change something. Spoiler alert, it doesn't really. And it's sort of slightly been done a little bit before, but that's maybe another issue. Let's have a look what's happening with asylum hotels. This is the story that asylum seekers could face tens of thousands of pounds worth of invoicing for their hotel and benefit costs under new rules from Shabana Mahmood, with permanent settlement barred until it's paid back. This argument slightly falls apart when you consider that only something like 87% or 83% of people in that position, those looking for asylum or those that have been granted asylum, will ever get to a position where they could even think about paying this back. So the numbers don't stack up. We'll talk to Orla Minahane in a few moments. First, Mike Buckley, former Labour advisor. Always good to gauge this one, Mike. I do wonder, and I'm trying to be completely bipartisan on this point, but the numbers from the Home Office themselves suggest that there aren't enough really significant enough people in this cohort that would ever pay anything back that looked as if it even touched the sides of 10,000 quid. What's the thinking here?
I don't know, if I'm quite honest. I mean, I was thinking about it this morning, obviously, before coming on, and I think the principle, generally speaking, amongst the population, that those who benefit, as in receive benefits of whatever kind, should also contribute. So, for example, those of us who use the NHS, we also pay tax. Those of us who use education or roads in the UK, we also pay tax. So the principle that those who benefit should contribute is a good one. And I think we would all expect that people who are given refugee status in the UK have a responsibility to go on to get a job, to contribute to society in any way that they can. And the vast majority do. And of course, people want to get on with their lives. They want to get well. The reality is, refugees do struggle to get jobs that pay much more than the minimum wage. So it's unlikely that many refugees would ever be earning enough to pay back £10,000, which for people on low incomes is a lot of money, whatever your background. So I don't think this can be being done to bring in a lot of money to the state. I suspect it's being done more as a kind of point of principle to say those who can pay should pay. And I'm sure there will be a small proportion of refugees who will go on and get well-paying jobs, or maybe came into the country with some wealth already, though that will be a tiny fraction, who would be able to pay a sum like this. But I don't think it could be being done to make much money, and it must be presentational. But then the other question is it going to cost us money? Is it going to cost the country money to run this system, to understand the income of all these people, which is tens of thousands of people for decades to come, to work out if they ever do cross the threshold and need to start repaying the money? And I think that's a question that we should ask, and so do the MPs should be asking today as they discuss this.
It does seem, I don't think it makes somebody overtly cynical to look at this and think, look, the Tories and Labour, it seems almost, it's like an episode of Roadrunner, where they're constantly, where he's constantly looking at new ways to gain the prize and fails every time. Here's another slogan: "Stop the boats," said Rishi. "Smash the gang," says Keir. "Oh, let's get people out of hotels. We are closing them for good. But then we're going to move people to HMOs, which is also pretty expensive as well. We can't stop the boats. We can't really smash the gang." There's all of these almost weekly announcements from the Home Office under the last government and under this government, and it goes nowhere. And it does seem curious that of all the things in life that we can solve, we can't stop people arriving on rubber boats in Dover. I mean, when you put it like that, it seems unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that in terms of, is this going to impact public opinion on how the government is dealing with the small boats, I don't think it will. Because you're right, people want the government to be able to decide who is coming into the country and who isn't coming into the country. That I think is the fundamental principle. And I think pretty much all of us in the UK would think, well, yes, that is right. Nobody really wants the boats to come. Not because, I'm in favour of the UK taking refugees who are genuine refugees. I don't want them to have to make dangerous journeys. Some people don't think that we as a country should be taking any asylum seekers at all, or the numbers that we do now. Mm-hmm. And they also want the boats to stop. So all of us want the boats to stop, which means that we've got to work out, why are these people coming? Why are they choosing to come this way rather than come another way? What can we do to stop those things happening? And there are multiple reasons why people come to the UK rather than claim asylum somewhere else. And lots of them have some kind of family connection to the UK, but some of them are people who did make a claim somewhere else in the EU, in Europe, and then decided their claim failed, and they think, well, I get another shot in the UK. Whereas if we were part of a Europe-wide system where only one claim could be made in the whole of Europe, as is the case in the EU, then there wouldn't be that same incentive. So we create an incentive with the way that we removed ourselves from the European asylum system. So re-entering that system would be one reason to kind of take away a very big incentive that does cause some people to make that journey. But we obviously also need to work more with the French and with others on the northern border of Europe.
We pay them a lot of money, though, Mike, don't we? We paid the French an awful lot of money.
Yeah, we do. Which is why I think it would make much more sense for us to be part of a Europe-wide system. That probably would require us to take a quota of asylum seekers from the whole of Europe, but a fair quota. And I think one of the other issues that does bother people is that people feel like the numbers that we take are unfair. And that isn't actually true, but I think that message doesn't get out enough. I mean, other countries do take proportionally far more than we do across the whole of Europe. But in the end, we live in an unstable world. We live in a world where climate change happens, conflict happens, natural disasters happen. Some people, a tiny minority of people, are going to want to move to a country like the UK. But the vast majority of people that move because of conflict or disaster stay in their own country or move to a neighbouring country.
I'm sure that is true statistically, but is there an argument? I mean, it doesn't necessarily make you a right-wing nutter if you say, look, we need a bit of a moment here, a pause, because we're financially all over the place. The projections for balancing the books look pretty grim, whether Andy Burnham comes in or whether Kemi Badenoch's running the show. It doesn't matter. The books are grim. Employment issues, our deficit, the overarching bills that we struggle to pay. What would be wrong with saying, we're not taking anyone. We're going to do 5 years. I'm sorry, we're not taking anyone into this country. Why would that be? What is it? I mean, you're a Labour man. What is it particularly, kid? It's not only Labour people. There's plenty of Tories that have the same view as you on this, that we have a duty. I think David Cameron would be one of those people, for example. But why not say no?
I mean, even if we did, it wouldn't fix the problems that the economic problems we've got in this country. The economic problems we've got in this country are much, much more deep-seated. While you've quoted a figure of 4.9 billion down there, I mean, I haven't verified that. I don't know if it's accurate. Let's assume that it is for a minute. Yeah, that's a lot of money. But in the context of the UK economy, that isn't a huge amount of money. And I do think there is an over-focus on what is actually quite a small amount of people and quite a small amount of money overall, rather than looking at bigger issues. And there are lots of other deep-seated issues, some of which Andy Burnham was talking about yesterday, that need to be addressed in society if our economy is going to improve and if people's living standards are going to improve. And an over-focus on this doesn't do anybody any favours, I don't think. Okay. There's also a very simple practical question of, even if we decided we were never going to take any more asylum seekers, people would still come here on boats. What are we going to do with those people? You know, we can't send, in quotes, send them back if we can determine where they came from, because the country in question may not want to receive them, and France certainly wouldn't want to receive them back. So we have to deal with them. What are we going to do with them? We have that, and we're also just signed up to lots of conventions that it would be impractical, but also to a degree immoral, but also just near on impossible for us to leave. I mean, for example, the ECHR, which is often talked about, underpins, for example, our trade agreement with the EU, which makes us a lot more money than 4.9 billion, and it also underpins the Good Friday Agreement, which ensures peace and stability in Northern Ireland. So leaving the ECHR is often talked about, but is practically speaking and politically speaking, and indeed economically speaking, impossible.
Well, there are lawyers, of course, who would give you an argument on that one, but I hear what you're saying, Mike. Thank you, Mike Buckley. We didn't have time to pursue that specific point, but thank you to him. Former Labour advisor Orla Minahane is from Restore Britain, joins us now. Orla, I mean, it's a bit of a joke, isn't it, this ongoing, right, here's another initiative. Oh, hang on, here's another initiative. Oh, look, it's the Home Office with another initiative. We get quite a lot. There's a lot of slogans out there, a lot of stuff that looks a little tasty on a press release, might make a headline in the Morning Star or wherever, but upon scrutiny, simply collapses. What is going on?
I can't, with all due respect to Mr. Buckley that was just on, I cannot think of anything that he said that I agree with. So we could not be further from on opposite sides of the spectrum.
Fantastic.
You know, and I know you like that, so that's good, Ian.
Indeed, yeah, we've got both ends of the this issue.
You know, I by no means do I think, you know, people, genuine asylum seekers, women who came from Ukraine with their daughters and their sons, who came when the Ukraine war started. They came here, they needed asylum. Their husbands and their fathers were fighting, their homes were blown up. They came here genuinely looking for asylum, and we accepted them, we made them welcome, and that was our duty as a kind, you know, humanitarian group of, you know, people, the British people. We're always welcoming for genuine asylum seekers. Now, a lot of those people have either settled and integrated or they've gone home. Now, there is a very big difference between women and children fleeing a war where their homes have been blown up and they are literally fighting for their lives, and men coming over from countries to claim to get benefits, to live in hotels, to not integrate, to take advantage. These are very, very different individuals. Now, you know, you look at Labour and they're saying, you know, recently in the last few days, you see asylum seekers going into brand new council properties. You see videos online of men queuing up and getting keys. We have got, in Scotland, I watched a video today of a migrant, an illegal migrant, who was given keys to a brand new flat in Aberdeen. Scotland have gotten a housing emergency. There are over 10,000 children in Scotland living in emergency accommodation. Why should a man of 25, 26 get off a boat illegally, come over to the UK, get given benefits and given somewhere to live before the British people? It is not fair. And ultimately, Labour were the party of the working class people. They are so far removed from that now. Everything revolves around everybody else but protecting the British people and the British workers, and it is just absolutely unfair.
I don't know what I mean, I suppose their argument ought to go something like this, that once somebody arrives here, once they get here, we can talk about how you stop somebody arriving in Dover, if there are ways to do that. Apparently they've thought of every way but can't come up with one, which I find unbelievable. But let's assume that they can't find a way. So the Labour government and previous Tory governments say, well, once they've arrived here, what are you meant to do? What do you do with, we don't know necessarily where people come from, so we've got no returns policy. We can't suddenly just fly somebody back to Eritrea because that would be costly and expensive. We are, essentially, the government won't say it, but I think their line is, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, they don't know what to do, and that should be their slogan. We don't know what to do, because they simply don't. At the end of the day, you detain them. Ian, I've been to Dover. I've watched these men get off boats, be escorted onto a coach and taken to hotels. Anybody that goes to another country and does not have passport documents or a right to be there will be given short shrift and sent straight back. Why are we accepting these men and putting them on coaches, taking them to hotels or HMOs and welcoming? There is no deterrent. And when they get here, they know that they're going to be given benefits. They know they're going to be given housing. You know, if we were taking these men off these boats, detaining them, putting them in a cab and then processing them and then sending them back on a flight to wherever they came from, they wouldn't come. And the thing is, you say it's expensive. It's a lot cheaper to put somebody back on a flight and send them back to where they came from than housing them for a year.
But also, you'd imagine you'd only have to do that a few times and people would stop coming, wouldn't they?
Exactly.
I mean, there is, and even Macron in France said, you know, you've got to get rid of the pull factor.
We need to create a hostile environment.
If I was an 18-year-old living in Eritrea and I thought I fancy a bit of backpacking in the UK, then it's worth a punt, isn't it? Because even if you were kicked out after 2 years, you go, well, I had 2 years, I lived for free.
It's like an 1830s holiday. They come here, they get, you know, they live the best life.
Yeah, and I'm not even making light of it, I'm not even trying to be mischievous by saying that. And genuinely, if I was living in Eritrea and I was unhappy with the country and I didn't think it had many prospects. And, of course, we live in a world now where people are years ago, if you were 20 years ago, if you said to somebody in Eritrea, could you go and live in Spain, France or the UK, they go, well, it's impossible. You know, we haven't got the facilities to do it. Social media has changed everything. People can see the lights. They can see the opportunities. And travelling around has never looked more straightforward than it does now. The smallness of the world. So it's completely doable that you look at the place as a 19-year-old and go, do you know, I'm going to give it a punt. I'll have a bit of a trek through Europe. I'll do it in whatever way I can. I'll have a couple of years in a hotel somewhere, then I'll go home again.
Yeah, exactly. And
I genuinely believe that is a common
That is exactly what it is. Because if they were fleeing persecution and they were fleeing war, why are they only coming on their own? Why is there no women? Why is there no children? Yeah, they're just men. They're upwardly mobile, essentially men. Now, take away who they are and where they come from, and most come from cultures that do not integrate with ours and have a very different way of looking at women and and how we live and respect, etc. Put that to the side. If you are a working family, you're two parents, a policeman and a nurse, and between you may be earning 60 or 70, and you cannot afford to make ends meet because bills are going through the roof, your rent's going through the roof, you can't afford to to get your children a new pair of trainers, and then you look at people being given brand new social accommodation. How is that fair? How does that make that doesn't motivate people to work? It doesn't motivate people to be good, decent, hardworking taxpayers. It annoys people, and that annoyance is going to bubble over, and people are going to start rebelling because they've had enough. They're seeing the sheer unfairness of how this country is being run, and no matter what Labour say or anybody on the left, people are going to revolt at some point because it is absolutely outrageous and unsustainable, and we're skin.
And it doesn't look as if it's going to get any better, any different at all under Andy Burnham. Listen, Orla, we hit the clock. Always great to see you. Thank you for coming on. Orla Minahane from Restore Britain. Thank you to her. 0344 499 1000.
On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham. He just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
James says this policy risks becoming an incentive rather than a deterrent. If the messages being sent around the world is that arriving illegally in Britain could result in being housed in newly built homes, well, it's amazing, isn't it? Hey, you heard what's happening over there in the UK. Yeah, be careful if you want to go over there in a boat. Why? We might end up with a free £250,000 brand spanking new house in East Shropshire. Oh, I'd better stay at home then. I can see the point you're making, James. James makes this. He says... thousands of British families remain on waiting lists, then it's hardly surprising that many people will see the UK as an increasingly attractive destination. The government says it's about getting people out of expensive hotels, but unless there is a credible system of a swift processing, removals for those who've no right to stay, and proper border control, all we're doing is changing the type of accommodation on offer. That's very true. The pull factor remains. You can't solve an illegal migration crisis simply by upgrading where people are housed. You solve it by reducing the incentive to come in the first place. I mean, bang on, says James in Liverpool. Thank you for that. Charlie's in East Sussex. What have you got for us, Charlie? Afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Afternoon.
Exasperating, isn't it? Exasperating.
Yes.
Look, I like to think I'm a normal sort of person, a bit like yourself, quite measured, which is why I listen to your show, because I believe you've got a very sort of measured attitude.
Genius, I think some have called it.
Well, you know, let's not go too far, mate. Ian,
yes.
Look, what we've got to say to ourselves is, do the government really believe that we're stupid? Because, you know, it's absolutely crazy. With this recharging of asylum seekers, what are they going to pay it back with? Their benefits? All the ones that go into the black economy, they're gone. You know, so what on earth are they playing at with this? When you hear some of the stuff that the government are coming out with, I'm going, no, that can't be right. I must be in some kind of parallel universe where they think this is some kind of great idea. And you just think, well, that's it. And now with Andy Burnham, I'm sorry, but the lunatics really have taken over the asylum.
Yeah, because there's no way Burnham is going to touch any of this.
Oh, absolutely not. He's going to steer well clear of it. He made no mention of it at all in his, well, let's call it his keynote speech, shall we? Made no mention of it at all. He's going to steer well clear of it. It's going to cost us a fortune, moving everything to Manchester. And you just think, right, OK, we can see which way this is going to go. We all know. And there's only one lot of people that are going to be paying for it. That's you, me, anybody else who's trying to earn a living.
Yeah.
That's the way it is, unfortunately.
Sadly, it is. Charlie, thank you very much indeed. I just don't believe... When we had Michael Graham on the other day from the States, I mean, they genuinely find it hilarious, given that Trump has largely solved the Mexican border crisis. Pretty much nobody's making that journey. They don't want to be there because they know if they turn up there, the ICE boys might step in and say, sorry, you're not meant to be here, you came here illegally, or they've reduced any sort of incentive that might have drawn people into the United States. There were quite a lot of incentives, by the way, for years and years and years. That border was almost open. But they've got rid of it. And the Trump administration, whether you love or hate Donald Trump, doesn't matter. The fact is they've pretty much put a stop to that form of immigration. You know, people do emigrate to America. You're allowed to do that and can do it legally. But hopping over the border is a no-no, and people have largely stopped doing it. When they look at us, they go, hang on a second. We're connected to Mexico. I mean, literally, you get to Texas and 1 foot in that direction, you're in Mexico. So you can see why that's a problem. You guys you're an island. You're an island. They can't work out how a flipping island can't protect its own borders. I mean, we have a huge moat around us called the sea. The clue is there. We still can't solve it. It is a joke. 0344 499 1000. Your thoughts on this, and of course the other big stories of the day as well. We've got a whole load of stuff to get through here on Talk, and also in the next hour we continue with your calls and comments. We are in particular going to be looking at that well-trodden area of Andy Burnham and his part-time gig in Manchester, or is it Westminster, whichever one you pick. Let's get the news at 2 o'clock.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
We've got a load to look at here this afternoon. We're pretty busy at this end, particularly this one. Asylum seekers are to be handed a £10,000 bill. Wow, are the Home Office onto it? Yeah, a bill for their hotel and benefit costs under new rules from Shabana Mahmood. Migrants barred from permanent settlement until the debt is repaid. There is a problem with this, and that is that nearly 90% of those granted asylum never actually reach a stage in employment, if employment at all, where they would be in a position to pay it anyway. So what's the point of the policy? We'll continue to look at that. Also, Andy Burnham's plans to run Britain part-time from Manchester is drawing some fierce criticism, opponents branding his so-called Manchesterism as a dangerous new form of socialism. Thoughts on that in just a couple of moments. And Keir Starmer has failed to deny reports that £9 billion earmarked for military housing has been raided to fund his defence investment plan, raising questions about whether serving personnel are actually footing the bill for last-minute spending reshuffle ideas. Thoughts on that as well. Andy Burnham, of course, is going to inherit all of this. 0344 499 1000. One in from Dan in Kent, who says, afternoon, Ian, devolution is nothing more than watering down England as a country, floating in the long, eyelashed, self-absorbed politician in Burnham, unchallenged to divide our country up without a public mandate is disgusting. There's a lot of talk on this. It's a... I don't know, by the way, how this idea of moving stuff around, more devolution, nothing wrong with, you know, having mayors in different places and all the rest of it. I don't know how it's being written down as kind of game-changing in any meaningful way, Firstly, let's speak with Andy Preston, a man who knows a thing or two about mayoralty, because he was one, very successfully, Mayor of Middlesbrough, of course, and now political commentator. Always good to have you on with us, Andy. Just talk us through, firstly, I mean, the power of a mayor. So take a place like Middlesbrough, a very proud town, sizable population. It's not Manchester, it's not London, but Middlesbrough is Middlesbrough, and it had a mayor and still has a mayor. What was the necessity to have one in the first place, and what do you think it achieves greater than not having one at all?
So there are three kinds of Mary, and the first one is the one that you know, you're familiar with, which is like the woman or the bloke in robes with a big chain.
Yeah, love that.
That's like
I want to be one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's called a ceremonial mayor, and they're wheeled out, you know, to do stuff at official occasions.
Yeah.
The next one has been around a little bit less than that, and that's called a city mayor. So normally your city or borough council is run by a leader who's chosen by the councillors. Yeah. So normally the ruling party, the Tories or Labour, Reform, they'll pick one of their mob to be the leader and be the official leader of the council. Then there's another, this is where I'm coming to it, that there's another way of doing it where the public directly elect and choose the leader of the council, and that's a mayor. And there are only about 10 of those in England. Middlesbrough is one of them. So instead of the councillors, a bunch of blokes and women from around the corner choosing who the boss is, the public do. So it's a high-profile role. You've got a bit more power. So that's the city mayor. And then the last kind, the kind that Andy Burnham is called a metro mayor, where you look after a much bigger area, usually 7 to up to 30 different councils, and you oversee them for investment and infrastructure and things like that. It's a great job, you know, because as a metro mayor, all you do is hand money out. You open new factories, you write checks and deliver great projects that the public love. Yeah. So being a metro mayor means you're popular. They almost never lose their seat. They're nearly always re-elected, hence Andy Burnham's popularity. But the last thing I'll say before you ask me some more is that Andy Burnham is very popular. He's very good at PR and the public love him there. It isn't clear to me what value he has added.
And I think that is the question. Even those that want to be... I mean, most people cross-party seem to recognise that Andy Burnham's a pretty decent chap. I've met him myself a couple of times. Always seemed all right to me. I can't claim to really know him. I don't know. It might be a horror show behind the scenes. I doubt it, though. But, you know, seems like a nice bloke. I get all of that. But he does seem to have taken his kind of Mancunian... well, previous position now as that Metro Mayor that you just described, and added booster rockets onto it. It's almost like he's keeping one foot in Manchester, and now he's talking about moving a sort of number 10 into Manchester and having maybe cabinet meetings. They've done a little bit of that before, as you know, in the past, moved cabinet meetings around the country. I don't really know what it achieves, given the fact that, you know, the last time I looked, Westminster is a place. The Houses of Parliament are in London. We can't change... well, you could change it if you wanted to. I don't know why we have to constantly sort of battle against that notion. It's got to be somewhere.
It's got to be somewhere, and that's exactly right. You know what? It's got symbolic meaning. That's what it'll achieve. Yeah. It'll show the people of Manchester and most of the north that there's a sense that, like, we're listening, we're here, we're on the ground. The truth is, though, for every time the Prime Minister or the Chancellor or some senior civil servants are in Manchester for symbolic value, they're not in London, you know. There's a great value in being around each other, bouncing ideas off each other. That's when you know what's really going on. And that's why power congregates in places, because you need to see what each other are doing. You can share ideas, keep an eye on problems. And when you've got leaders in far-flung places, something is lost. So the symbolic value symbolic value will be again with number 10 Manchester, and it'll be popular in Manchester, of course. It will absolutely reduce the power of government and the effectiveness of government. You have to have central places that get stuff done.
Indeed. So the symbolism, I mean, I get that. It's this sort of, I suppose, reliving a conversation that's happened quite a lot about, you know, it all happens down in London, and down in London they get this, and down in London they get that. I mean, newsflash and spoiler alert, people in Kent or Essex have exactly the same concerns as people, whether they're in Middlesbrough, Carlisle, Cardiff, or anywhere else for that matter. It doesn't change, but the optics suggest that there's something going on where anyone... I think the most poverty-stricken areas are actually in parts of London, to be honest. But so there's all of that which sort of gets lost. And is Burnham playing to a sort of a gallery here? You know, we won't let those soft Southerners tell us what to do.
Ian, he really is. His big speech yesterday, which was actually a great speech and that it was very effective. He didn't say much, but it roused a passion. It had a sense of things were going to change. He was playing to two crowds. One was the actual Labour MPs. He was trying to get them behind him, excite them, motivate them for a better future. And he was playing to the red wall in the north, the voters in Manchester area, Liverpool area, West Yorkshire, and up in the northeast of England, who've been strong Labour supporters, are in danger of switching to reform. He was playing to those and saying, I'm on your side. It wasn't a speech for the whole country. And you're dead right. You're dead right, Ian. That basically Burnham and others present the picture that the north is desperately poor and the south is desperately rich. Of course, they are completely untrue. There are really poverty-stricken parts of London, Kent, Suffolk, Cornwall, anywhere in the south. And there are very rich people in the north. And it's a really dirty political trick to pit one against the other. The last thing I say, about Burnham, unless you've got another question, is that there's no evidence that he's done an amazing job. There really isn't. And if you look at, say, the greater Glasgow area up in Scotland, run 200 miles north from Manchester, you go up there. Now, they haven't had devolution in the same way. They haven't even got an elected mayor for the metro area. But it has performed at least as well as Greater Manchester. So without all the Burnham PR, without the hype, without the spin, quietly the Greater Glasgow area is doing exactly the same stuff and maybe even better. So it's not an Andy Burnham thing. He's not the Messiah.
Yeah, I think you are bang on, as ever. Andy, thank you. Lovely to have you on again. Andy Preston, political commentator, and he is the former independent mayor of Middlesbrough. I think that's probably true, what he said there. Let's get a word from John Power, assistant content editor at The Spectator. I know you've written about this, John. Good to have you with us. I mean, it does seem something that... I don't know why it's become a bit of a go-to, but we've heard it in recent years quite a lot, that each new leader that comes in, we're going to, put the Treasury in Newcastle, we're going to have cabinet meetings in Sheffield, and so they've kind of made a big song and dance about, we're not London-centric. Again, quite why we have to apologise for having a capital city, I've got no idea. But this, just looking at your article, this is not new, is it? This idea that, that politicians want to show they're in tune with the entirety of the country has been going on for nearly 100 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, in a sense, it's actually the sort of thing that Burnham would probably accuse his political opponents of. It's a kind of divisive populism. You're sort of taking people in the north and you're sort of playing to their grievances, saying you've got things, there are things that you haven't got because people in the south are stealing your money and because Parliament is out of touch, and I'm going to be your sort of tribune and go on a sort of attack mission against Westminster, and I'm going to restore your sort of sense of pride. I think it's a very sort of dangerous politics, and I think that this kind of thing, it might seem okay at first, but over time, this is the kind of thing that presages a country sort of being divided up properly and different kind of political representations. It's what Burnham's going for. I just say. This has been a trend for a long time. The first thing to say is it never seems to work. London does remain the sort of preeminent capital, even though for the last 70 or 80 years, basically since the war, we've had industrial licenses and different governments trying to prop it up. But the other thing to say about it is actually this kind of thing, this devolution agenda, is really unpopular. There's been loads and loads of referendums in the new Labour years, like the North East, which was countered by North East says no, to try and take these elected mayors. A lot of these elected mayors have had to be forced in by fiat, basically central government saying, well, you might have rejected a referendum, but we're going to go for it. Jeremy Corbyn, who had these ideas about devolution that are quite similar to what Andy Burnham is now proposing, had these ideas for regional banks, and he had this very fleshed out vision for how he was going to spread wealth from London across the country. And he failed to win the election in 2017 and again in 2019. Yeah. So it's not actually popular. I think Burnham will become unstuck because most people are not stupid and they don't actually buy into this sort of kind of basically rage-baiting sort of grievance politics.
Is it? I mean, I would imagine if nothing else, John, it's probably very expensive as well. I was just, considering the sort of Burnham number 10 Manchester thing, which just sounds like a nightclub, frankly, but nonetheless, that's what they've come up with. One has to reasonably assume that if he sort of did go ahead with this, then that would entail a building of some kind that you've got to kit out, and you've got to therefore have staff within it, and one would assume that when you've got staff and anything that's got civil service smacked across it, there's clearly going to be staff, and everyone will want their own department, and every department will have a line manager, and every line manager will have another manager, and every manager will have an HR manager. You'll end up with a whole other bureaucracy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the cost is one element. The other element is when you move government departments across the place and you tell people who are perfectly happy living in London or have a family there, someone who's a civil servant in the Treasury, and say, well, I'm going to move you to Darlington. They just say no. And that means that, you are recruiting local talent. And the unfortunate truth is for many years, lots of graduates who grew up somewhere like Darlington, young people who grew up in Darlington, they want to move away, and they move away to somewhere like London or another regional capital, which means the talent pool in that area is not as good as it is in London, which means that your public services get worse. We've already seen this with the ONS going to Newport in Wales. Lots of people just refuse to go, which means that it is not performing as effectively as it once was. And we've seen the Treasury Darlington campus, lots of civil servants refusing to go, even though they're being given direct cash incentives. The broader point here about it being inefficient, whenever you're trying to rebalance the economy, basically, partly on sentimentality, the idea that we want the North to be an industrial powerhouse like it used to be 100 years ago, even though the kind of economic need for it is gone. Every time the state tries to make this kind of interference, it is creating inefficiencies. If you're creating incentives to make people move out somewhere else and relocate their lives against what their natural trend is wanting to do, which appears to be moving to London and the South East, that will always be more inefficient than just allowing the country to work. And, in the context of the country, kind of slipping into becoming an economic basket case, nothing seeming to work, massive amounts of public debt, the idea that you'd embark on this massive rebalancing and try to redistribute what money we have left is absolutely crazed.
And aside from anything else, I just can't see why this would... I mean, there's a lot been made of this. You know, Andy Burnham is rewiring the entire system, the way we've done business. I mean, when you break it apart and deconstruct what he said, look, you know, we know he's a fairly persuasive character. He's a likeable chap, you know, sounds like the fella you might meet in the pub and have a pint with. Great, I get all of that. I mean, I want a bit more from someone if they're going to become my Prime Minister, but on the face of it, I understand, you know, that there is a sort of an attraction for some, and certainly for Labour supporters, I can see how they would see this as a vast improvement of what they had. But the idea that he's going to be more Manchester-based is somehow a radical plan, and this is going to go down in a sort of Churchillian way in the history books, is just nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's condescending to the people who vote. We vote on big national issues, and we vote, you know, we want to vote in Parliament, we want our vote to be respected, which is another dynamic of this. You know, in some ways it's not radical, in some ways it's kind of repetitive, we've heard it all before. But in another respect, it is very radical, because if you consider Brexit 10 years ago, that was a vote to take power back from Brussels and take it back into Westminster, where we had accountable elections. You know, people can really focus on politics around the times of general election about every 4 or 5 years, and they can really make a decision. This taking power away and shifting it to local democracy, where voter turnout can sometimes be like 30 or 20%, it basically means that lots of spending decisions in politics will be done by these unaccountable bodies, what he calls collaborative government, which means local stakeholders, people in the NHS, people in local government coming together and making decisions without any real democratic oversight. So it is radical in a sense, but it's radically anti-democratic.
John, thank you. Great to have you on with us. John Power is Assistant Content Editor at The Spectator. Thank you to him. Over to you on that one as well. I was trying to find the sort of radical nature of that speech. The speech obviously wasn't... I mean, there were hints at policy, but it wasn't big on specifics. And defenders of Burnham will go, well, it wasn't really the point of it. It was him to sort of lay out, if you like, the initial way, the kind of leader he might be, rather than the specifics. When you think about that, we're going to move an expense. It's never even going to be cost neutral. I mean, you start shifting people around, and you've got the cabinet, and you've got the Secretary of State for Culture or Agriculture, whatever it happens to be, stuffed in one place, and then they're suddenly told, "Wow, you've got to move. You've got to go to Manchester next week." But I've got 7 meetings in London. Really? Why have you got 7 meetings in London? Because that's where my office is. Because it's the capital city, and that's where Parliament is, and therefore, because that's where Parliament is, that's where the associated offices of each department also exist, in either the same or right next door postcodes. It's that simple. You want to move the whole lot en masse, which costs billions, to a different place, then go nuts. But this idea you're going to hybrid it in some way and it's going to make some kind of bizarre difference, other than Andy being in touch with the people. Really? 0344 499 1000. And the bigger question we threw out this afternoon about solving immigration. Lines are open on that as well. It's coming up on 2. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, 0344 499 1000. Let's go to your calls over here. We've got Kevin in Portsmouth. Kevin, what have you got for us? Hi.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Hello.
Well, when you first started, you threw down the gauntlet, sir.
Yes.
Saying who can come up with a solution for the illegals. I have one.
Go on.
And it's very, very simple. So, anyone breaking into the country, straight into internment, proper razor wire, guard towers, secure accommodation, marquees, bunk beds, feed them swedes and turnips, perfectly healthy. And there they stay until we can either get them back from whence they came, not France, but their country of origin, or they die. That's the first lot. Right, the second lot are those who came over here and sort of kind of forgot to go home. Now, the estimate is 1.2 million. I'd imagine it's probably between 2 and 3 times that.
Yep.
Remember back when we had Eastern Europe, a couple of millionaires, when they counted, they found out about 7 million of them. So we're not very good at counting people because we don't count them out. So I go to France on not that often, but I do go to France. My passport is stamped in and it's stamped out. I know exactly, when I'm in and when I'm out. Now, so as far as those who are here illegally...
That's the bit, just on that point, Kevin, I've never been able to fathom this. Have we got something wrong with our computers over here? Because I always thought that the minute if you told you've got a visa for a year, then when the year is up, something would ping on a computer somewhere to say that Manuel from Madrid is due to have gone out of the country and he's not left the country, so we better go and look for him.
Right. I have a cunning plan for that too. I thought about this quite carefully. Those who are here illegally, they're given 6 months' notice. Okay, tomorrow, coincidentally, is the 1st of July. So if you haven't sold up and gone, taking your assets with you, by New Year's Day, we're coming after you. And if we catch you, when we catch you, you're going straight into internment, and we're going to sequester everything you've got to fund it all.
Yep.
Now, as far as Manuel coming over on his student visa is concerned, and he decides he's going to work 20 hours a week at Asda, 20 hours a week at Sainsbury's, 20 hours a week at Tesco, doesn't go near his seat of learning, I would issue specialist national insurance numbers that go with the visa. So they will say, right, if this guy pops up on the Inland Revenue System as working more than 20 hours a week, we'll be after him, throw him out. If he stays here after his 3-year student visa, the national insurance number will stop working, and we can track him down and throw him out.
Yep.
And really start taking this serious. They're saying, oh, but they had a child. The child was born in the UK, therefore the child's English. No, it's not. If one of the parents was here illegally, that kid was conceived by an illegal, male or female, I don't care. Your kid, you take it with you. We're not going to look after it. Now, I reckon you'd clear out a good couple of million people doing that, and suddenly we can find schools, we can find houses, we can find doctors, we can find dental. We probably won't find dentists actually, but you take my point. And we actually get a grip on this country. And if you come over here and you abide by our rules and you behave yourself, you're and you contribute, you get a proper job, and so on and so forth, absolutely fine. You come over and commit crime, out. And when I say commit crime, if you get caught driving without insurance, in my country, we didn't need to have that. Okay, fine, fair enough. Now you know, do it again, out.
Is the reason, I mean, all this stuff, whenever I hear this, it's complete common sense, obviously, everything you've said. I don't think anybody would disagree with it, but it does make you wonder, is there a reason why politicians haven't been able to go there? Is it more expensive to administer this common sense than it is to just ignore it?
The reason they haven't gone there is because of the Human Rights Act. And we've now got Shabama Mahmood dancing in circles with yet another scheme to say, we're going to make them all repay 10,000 quid. Well, how do you repay anything if you're not allowed to work? And if the work you do get is really, really low salaried, I mean, if you're going to repay £10,000 to the British state, it'll probably take you the rest of your life to do it.
Yeah.
And after all, and you've got to pay the traffickers first.
True.
So the thing about this is we've got to get much, much, much tougher with our borders, and it's no good Keir Starmer paying money to the French and then blaming the French when they don't stop them on their border. The bloody French don't want them either. Okay, these are our borders. It is not France's job or duty to protect our borders. That's our job, and that's our responsibility. And we have to do it. And I mean, you certainly send back all the foreign criminals in our jails go straight back. And if the country, we don't want them, we're not having them back. Right, bang, 100% import duties, no more visas to come to the UK from your country or your nationality. I don't care where you live. If you want to get a visa, if you're a Pakistani living in, I don't know, Abu Dhabi, and you want to get a visa to the UK, sorry.
Ain't going to happen. I hear you. Kevin, well thought out stuff. It does infuriate me when somebody like yourself has a common sense answer, but politicians seem to be completely bereft of them. That's Kevin in Portsmouth on that one. This in from Cliff in Berkshire. I'm sure we take fewer refugees than some other countries. The ones they use as examples are much larger than the UK. Economically, we cannot support more and more people. We cannot, for example, create industries to employ lots of people because of power costs on top of too high wages and business rates. When I was born, our population was 40 million. Now it's 70 million. That number is not sustainable. And that's in just one lifetime. I'm sure if you went to a generation older than Cliff, you could probably add another few million on top of that as well. You have to look at it and go, well, yeah, that's not going to be sustainable. And it becomes less sustainable in the kind of world we're living in, where we've sort of got an AI automated, very sort of digitalised world. Then you kind of need fewer people in certain jobs. I mean, there are jobs that are care workers and the like, still imperative. But, yeah, I mean, you start doubling the population of a country over just several generations. I'm pretty sure that acceleration is out of kilter with the reality of delivering infrastructure and services. In fact, we know that, don't we? We can kind of see it every day, that there's a problem. Then there's cultural assimilation as well. What is the reasoning behind it? Why would we just be accommodating random people because they want to live with relatives that they happen to be connected to? Why would that be our duty to do that? That's one of the reasons many people gravitate to this country. There's the language, which is pretty international, but there's often family links as well, which is used as a defence by sort of pro-immigration voices who say, well, you know, if you have escaped a terrible regime in Syria, there's nothing wrong with wanting to get to the country where your Auntie Maureen lives, because she'll look after you. You'll be with similar people, etc. 0344 499 1000. Your thoughts on this? Lines are open. 2:30. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
28 minutes to 3 o'clock. Now, a national inquiry has delivered a damning verdict on NHS maternity care in England, finding discrimination embedded within the system and calling for a complete overhaul, including a new maternity commission. You would have thought in 2026 we would be, a sense we're going backward. You know, this is kind of stuff that, when you have Nottingham and other similar stories that sadly have happened, that would be in the dim and distant past, and now we're looking for a maternity commissioner. There was some better news, though, from the NHS this morning. Well, if you can call it better news, resident doctors are voting to end strikes. Thank you, doctors. You're brilliant. Great, except for the fact that they've accepted a pay deal that will see many earn over 100,000 quid a year. Nice work if you can get it. Let's speak with Steve Bryan, former Conservative Health Minister, co-host with James Bethell of the Prevention is the New Cure podcast. Steve, good to see you. Thank you for coming on with us. I mean, let's just look at this maternity story firstly. I mean, it does seem, as I was just referencing there, quite extraordinary that these kind of cases, they sound sort of Victorian, don't they? Years ago, they used to leave women on their own no matter how much they complained, etc. And here we are in 2026 with those kind of horrific stories still playing out with, as we know, horrific and lethal consequences.
Horrific and lethal, exactly those two words. Yeah, I mean, the report shouldn't shock us, Ian. It won't surprise many people. It doesn't surprise me. We've had too many reports, bluntly, too many families let down, too many opportunities to learn that haven't been acted on. I mean, this isn't a knowledge problem. It's an implementation problem. The NHS knows what good maternity care looks like because in some places it exists. The problem is that excellence is totally variable. So one of my great frustrations from my time as a minister and latterly, as you say, the chair of the Health Select Committee, is that we often don't need another report to tell us what good looks like. We need to make sure that every maternity unit actually delivers it. We were doing a piece of work on the committee when Rishi went out in the rain and called that daft election around leadership in the NHS. And, you know, that was partly the cat that I was trying to skin with that work, is that good reports are often produced. Bad ministers don't implement them. So there's that, but there's also churn. And, you know, since Brexit in the last 10 years, cause and effect, discuss, there have been so many ministers, so many prime ministers, so many secretaries of state at the Department of Health and Social Care, that things do get dropped, things get pushed down the priority list, and that churn really doesn't help government, and it really doesn't help the health department. And guess what we're about to do? Have another change. And so this really worries me.
It would. I think it would worry. It would worry most people, and those in the profession, of course. Most clinicians, Steve, would say, "No, hang on a second. You know, we're very caring, and most people have good experiences of maternity care. But somewhere, and it appears not to be any particular rank of medic. When we look at this last report, it seems to be sort of across the board. I mean, you wouldn't think it would require." Even the brilliance of yourself when you were health minister and others. Andy Burnham was also ran the entire department years ago. But just those on the shop floor would be instinctively in a caring capacity, particularly in a maternity unit.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say it does look like Andy Burnham's going to be the next Prime Minister, and he will, of course, be the first former Secretary of State for Health to get the top job. I tried to get Jeremy Hunt the top job, but that didn't work out. So it'll be interesting to see whether Andy takes that into the department on Victoria Street. I think the point to make is that the safest maternity units aren't just the ones with enough staff. They're the ones where women feel listened to, and fathers. I always want to make that point, where concerns are escalated early and every member of staff feels able to speak up. Go back to the Kirkup review, for instance. There was this fear of speaking up, fear of speaking out. And so the report's emphasis on culture, on racism, and on speaking up is absolutely right. Now, you referred to the case there, Ian, of a new maternity commissioner being appointed. The government have put out today that the confirmation that they're going to accept Baroness Amos's recommendation and appoint a commissioner. We don't know when, we don't know who. Donna Ockenden, who did the report into the Leeds Trust last week, has said that she's not sure she would take up the role if offered to it. And I would say, look, fine to have a commissioner, but as long as it's not part of the something must be done culture. Yeah. Henrietta Hughes, very good person, is the Patient Safety Commissioner. Henrietta would be the first person to say that she is only limited by the powers that she's given by Parliament and the resources that she is given by government. And so, yeah, one person can make an effort. But, you know, if the Secretary of State changes and the ministers change and number 10 change, then all of these people, whether it's Jim Mackey, the head of the NHS, or the Patient Safety Commissioner, or the new Maternity Commissioner, will all be sitting saying, okay, so we're now waiting for the next set of orders. And at the moment, I can tell you, the civil service are in a go slow. They are in a waiting for what's next mode. And that is perfectly understandable, but it does mean that you have a certain form of stasis.
A word, if you would, Steve, while you're with us, on the pay rise. There's no more strikes. I mean, you know what it's like to be in that department when people are threatening strike action. It's grey old days over there at the department, I'm sure, and fairly impenetrable ones. And you know, the doctors, of course, if you are sort of in that camp of supporting the doctor's position, have kept this one going for a long time, for years now, but it appears it's come to an end. What are your thoughts?
We should all be terribly grateful to these good fellows for giving up their strike action. Look, an end to strikes is obviously good news for patients, it's good news for the rest of the staff, and it's very good news for the NHS. But ending strikes isn't the same, Ian, as solving the workforce challenge. Sure. Yeah, I understand that trouble is brewing at the BMA. This yes vote to accept this deal was 52%. So that means, you know, turnout was very low. Yeah. And the BMA, last time they accepted a deal, said that that's a good starter for 10. This time they've said, yeah, okay, it's something to be going on with. What that means in the coded world of the BMA is that we'll be back for more if we don't like the pay deal when the independent pay review body comes up in the spring with its next set of recommendations. So I would be incredibly circumspect that this is the end of this. They want pay progression. That is perfectly reasonable, but it has to come as part of a funded workforce reform package that understands where the future of medicine is going and what the future of medicine looks like. Hospitals, doctors, surgeries, that is just one model. And some would say it's actually a very outdated model. Listen to the comments of the chair of the NHS, Penny Dash, just last week at a big health conference in Amsterdam. We were talking about it on the podcast last week, talking about what the future of doctoring looks like and where online and AI services come into play with that. You can't just be stuck in this rather analog 20th century argument around health unions, pay and staff. You've got to look at it in a much more intelligent way. And patients have paid a huge price for the last 3 years. And the government have written big checks without any agreement on productivity or any agreement on workforce reform. And that could come back to bite Mr. Burnham where it hurts.
Well, final point, Steve, just on a general point, really, as a politician, we have our 7th Prime Minister on its way. I was listening to a 16-year-old on a phone-in this morning who was saying that it sounded more poignant coming from a 16-year-old saying that he now has memories of 7 Prime Ministers. And that just seemed bizarre to hear a kid saying that.
Yeah, I mean, like, people, your viewers will be thinking, you know, gosh, the former Tory minister's got a nerve. Absolutely. But I just think that if you break the seal on an elected prime minister, then trouble brews. Because ultimately, for Andy Burnham, who almost certain will get the job, he is going to have to either stick to the manifesto, in which case where's the change, where's the hope, or he's going to have to do something else, in which case the calls for a general election will get louder. And I wouldn't rule out him announcing a general election in his conference speech to the Labour Party in Liverpool at the end of September, and one happening in October, because you've got to ask yourself who wants an election. I sure as hell don't think my former party do, and I don't think Nigel Farage does right now either. So Labour might think, well, we'll go to the country, yeah, Blair will have a majority of 80 or 90, but you know, Theresa May would have killed for half of that.
Yeah.
And he might well end up with a mandate, and that's what he wants. Big majorities, Ian, can be as bad as small majorities because they breed complacency among your backbenchers.
Boy, have we seen that. Steve, great to see you. Thank you for coming on with us. Steve Bryan, former Conservative Health Minister. He is the co-host. You should check this out. It's a great podcast, by the way. Prevention is the New Cure podcast. Does this alongside James Bethel. Have a listen and download that. This in from John in Sutton. It says, Ian, Burnham is just Labour's version of Boris, another forced dawn. I do worry about the kind of, the sort of a slight sportifying politics, which we've talked about endlessly for years and years, and sort of nailing your colours to a fanboy mast. And I think there was loads of that with Boris Johnson, and there's a bit of that with Andy Burnham. It's a similar thing. Andy's going to solve the problem because he's more accessible. And do any of those people really know anything about the policies of Andy, you know, the deeper policies? I appreciate he's not had the job for very long, but he's been in politics a long, long time. And I think if you were an objective student of politics trying to... Somebody said, look back at Andy Burnham's career, OK, before we knew he was going to go for that by-election. Look back at Andy Burnham's career and tell us in 50 words where his politics are. I honestly believe you would really struggle with that, really struggle to come up with, is he Blairite, is he Corbynite? They're two very different things. There's a little bit of grey in the Venn diagram, but it's minuscule. Where would you be? I don't think you'd be able to identify it. And if you can't identify that, at least with Corbyn, I loved that election. Or he stood for 2, didn't he, in one of our many elections in recent years. I love the fact I absolutely knew 100% what Jeremy Corbyn stood for. He was a walking, talking disaster zone. But everybody knew it. You could see it for yourself. Go, this guy's an absolute nut job. Fantastic. We know where the nut job is. We haven't got to look. We haven't got to wonder. We haven't got to do any research. He's saying it himself. He's telling us all himself. It was brilliant, but he was true to his politics. And if that is your flavour of politics, then Jeremy Corbyn was the man for you. I absolutely respect the fact the guy's been in Parliament for 150 years or whatever the hell it is, and I don't think he's changed his views from day one. And you'd be able to get... You'd walk around with an A star if you put that in your dissertation. Not so much Andy, but I don't think you could create that same unequivocal, compelling case for what Andy Burnham's politics are. Lenny is down in Ashford. How are you, Lenny?
I'm tickety-boo, thank you, Ian, mate.
Glad to hear it. Nice to have you with us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I've got quite a lot to say, really.
I mean, offload on us, Lenny. We're like a therapy session here.
Well, I think the one thing that our country has not had is a proper patriotic Prime Minister for years. Mm-hmm. And that is where we've got a lot of our troubles from. And, I mean, and the Conservatives, very few of them were true patriotic Prime Ministers. You know, I mean, always I felt that they were more interested in lucrative contracts than what they were for the good of the country. And that's where I look at where Burnham wants to have more politicians in the country. Mm. Well, it's the politicians. We've got the most, I believe, a really corrupt lot of politicians.
Corrupt in what kind of way, Lenny? Do you think? I mean, criminally corrupt, or corrupt in the sense that they don't? You know, you can be non-criminally corrupt in the sense that your morality or your ethics or your judgment seems to be corrupt. But are you saying that, or that these people, we've got a bunch of criminals down there in Westminster?
Well, I'll be quite honest, we got a full house. No matter what you want, you'll find them in...
well, that's true. You'll always find a percentage of dodge spots. There's a former Tory advisor who's just pleaded guilty to betting fraud. So, you've got that.
Yeah, but I mean, he's only the thin end of a wedge. He was nothing.
Yeah, true.
But, you know, but what it is, if you look at them on what they say, I mean, and what they do, nothing matches.
No.
You know, and I mean,
What are we expecting, though? I keep asking myself this question. It's one of the many things. I've got a big list of things that keep me awake at night. And that's kind of what sort of world are we wanting to live in? You know, post-war, you could see what not just the appetite for change, but the necessity for, you know, rebuilding. So the late 40s, the whole welfare system came around, Beveridge, and then, you know, Bevin with health and council house building, this sort of explosion of things that all happened over the subsequent decades, and they had to happen. And so it was a very defined period where people knew what the plan was. And now I don't think anyone knows what the plan is, and we're not sure what we're really after.
No, because the truth is never exposed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if I go back to when Ernest Marples, right? Now, he's a long time before, he was before your time, right? Now, he was a total corrupt minister. And when he done a runner. And no one has ever had accountability for being corrupt. And what Ernest Marples was doing, I think, is the norm today.
What party and what role did he play, Mr. Marples?
What he was the transport minister.
Okay.
Right, and he went into business with a company called Redway, and they built all the motorways. Well, when they looked into it and what it was costing and what he was charging and that, and the tax people look into him, I do believe he'd done a runner, and they couldn't get him back.
Did they ever find Marples?
Well, he was in, I think, now you'd have to bear with me, but I think he was in Morocco. Not Morocco.
Marbella?
No, I'm sorry, the name
Madagascar? Maidstone?
No, I'm sorry.
Mauritius? I'm going for all the M's.
No, I'll be quite
Maplethorpe?
honest. No, I'd say it's one of the wealthiest little countries in
Monaco.
the world. Monaco,
right?
Yeah, I think he done a runner to there.
Okay,
and he was, and what it is, no politician has ever founded accountability thing. I mean, you go back to COVID. You know, all the contracts that was done there. How many of them have found a better accountability?
I mean, it's interesting because without, you know, you'd have to go into a bigger investigation. There's many journalists that have sort of attempted to. But there does seem to be an overarching view that what happened there was incompetence rather than corruption. Where, I mean, if you talk to a minister, because, you know, we always heard this line, didn't we? Ministers giving all these contracts to their friends, you know. And I genuinely lost count, Lenny, of talking to various ministers since they've been, you know, deposed from their job as an MP, of saying, you know, I wish I knew somebody who was that real. I don't know anybody like that. We've got a big list in the office that says these people are reliable sources. So Michelle Mone comes along, the bra girl, and you go, well, she's a big businessman. Throw a few squillion in her direction. So it's more about complete ineptitude and naivety, if anything, rather than overt corruption. That's not to say some people don't have big contacts, of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, the things that I'm looking at, which I put down, I count as all part of corruption, and that is if you look at Mahmood. Right now, all she is, I mean, the deal she done with France was stupid, right? And I think she is a minister with a conflict of interest, and that's why the immigration thing will never be solved.
Why has she got a conflict of interest?
Well, I mean, she does talk about she wants to even more immigrants to come to the country. Now, if you want more if you're saying on one hand, we're going to open up legal routes so more immigrants can come to the country, then what she's saying about stopping immigrants don't mean a lot.
I always thought, I mean, Shabana Mahmood has been seen as the kind of voice, the voice that quite a lot on the left don't like very much, Lenny, because she's seen as being too, almost too to the right on immigration.
Yeah, but our words don't mean anything. Look at this stupid idea that she's come up with, which you've been talking about this morning.
Yep.
You know, we're going to get money back off of them. That never happened. It's all
no, that won't happen. But, you know, we've had that from the Conservatives, we've had it from Labour, we've had mantras, we've had sound bites, we've had press releases. It's made no tangible, it doesn't matter whether you're left-wing or right-wing, it's made no tangible difference to immigration policy. Does that mean, then, that there is a party out there, we've got to be really brief on this, Lenny, because we've just overshot on time. Is there a party out there, Reform talk about solving this? Will they? Do you believe they will be able to do what the others couldn't achieve?
Well, I think that they got more chance. We've got more chance with someone like them who will actually. They've got the right ideas, and I think they would put a lot of them into motion. You know, and it's a shame we've run out of time because what Kevin said, I had a lot. He said a lot of common sense earlier.
Mm-hmm. He did.
And basically, I would tell you this. If a dog is born in a stable, will it ever become a horse?
I think there are some veterinary procedures these days that are quite advanced, but whether it can do that, I don't know. Leave it with us, Lenny. Transitioning comes in all forms, even in the animal world. That was Lenny down in Ashford. Thank you to him. Great call. More to talk about. More from you on the way. Just gone 5 to 3. We've got the Voice of Doom coming next, right here on Talk.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, 5 to 3. All right, Voice of Doom. So this is the political mystery voice. If you know, we're not reinventing the wheel with this, OK? So it's just every day about this time. This one's day 10. So it's gone for 10 days so far. No one's got it. We think it's a bit of a stinker. Very simple question. All you've got to do is identify who you think it is. OK. Have a listen to the voice.
Any of the noble aspirations.
Let's hear it again.
Any of the noble aspirations.
If you think you know, there's only one way to get in touch, 87222. You will win precisely nothing other than the kudos and the accolade of saying, I won the Voice of Doom. It's gone on for 9 days, 10 today. If you can get it, 87222. If you can tell us who this is.
Any of the noble aspirations.
If we get a right answer, of course, we'll tell you after the news. If not, it rolls over to tomorrow. 87222. Here's the voice one more time.
Any of the noble aspirations.
Stand by. I'm sensing there might be a There might be a winner. It's not... Who's the common one that people keep guessing, Finn? Who is it? We keep getting... Cyril Smith, for some reason. It's the same person arguing Cyril Smith, who turned out to be a right dodge merchant for lots of really disturbing reasons. But he was a big old... When my sister was at school, she went on a trip with the school around Parliament, and Cyril Smith was, we're looking back on it, you know, Great Escape and all that stuff. He showed a load of school kids around the Parliament. I mean, this guy was the size of a flipping bus. He was a big lad. And he kind of dined out a little bit on that kind of, you know, big, burly, northern, fun kind of character. And he was a very dark and, well, horrendous figure, as it turns out. I don't know what road I'm going down with this, because we want to do a whole phone-in on horrendous figures in Westminster, we'd be here all flipping day, wouldn't we? It's not Cyril Smith, by the way, that's where we started. Peter's in Liverpool. What have you got for us, Peter? Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Ian. You had a Labour advisor on earlier, and he said we'd all like to stop the boats.
Yes.
Well, why appoint someone to the Home Office who's a meet and greet for illegal immigrants on the beach and calls for the boycott of Israeli products? Really, it doesn't sound serious to me.
So this was Mahmood in her sort of... Because they always say there's always a tweet and there's always a video, isn't there? There's always something. And, of course, she was very much in a different camp, it seems, not so many years ago. From that, I mean, she might say, well, I've learnt since then.
Yeah, I'm not...
You're not buying into that?
No. I also... I watched... I listened to a podcast, and it was relating to vape shops, barber shops, food delivery and car washes on the high streets. Now, I'm baffled that these places, the doors are not broken down every day on these places, because it's quite obvious that they're not making enough profit. And especially with business rates at the moment, I think ordinary people are finding it difficult to survive on the high street. But I've got a local, one of these barber shops near me.
Yeah.
And I very rarely see anyone in there.
Well, there's a shop in a very prime bit of real estate which would cost tens of thousands probably on a monthly basis to rent. It sits there on a very prominent railway station. I never see anybody in it. I can't believe it makes a beam. It looks legit. It's nicely done. You know, it's all nicely laid out, but something going on there. Peter, I've got to run because the news is upon us. Thank you, mate, for that. Here's the voice of doom.
Any of the noble aspirations.
87222.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Yeah, welcome back. It is the home of common sense. So much to talk about here, of course. We are majoring, if you like, on the asylum seekers who are to be handed a £10,000 bill for their hotel and benefit costs. This is a new scheme. New rules announced from Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. Migrants barred from permanent settlement until the debt is repaid. Now, this argument absolutely falls down by the Home Office's own data, which suggests that nearly 90% of asylum seekers, those granted status to remain, never actually work, or even if they do not achieve the right amount of money to be able to pay that kind of fee back. So it's going to come to nothing. It's another bizarre initiative. Also this afternoon, Andy Burnham's plan to run Britain part-time from Manchester is drawing fierce criticism, with opponents branding the so-called Manchesterism as a dangerous form of new socialism. We'll look at that and continue to take your calls. And 4 elite sumo wrestlers are back in Britain for Tokyo Nights, giving... I wish Charlie Rowley was still here to talk about this. Tokyo Nights giving audiences the chance to watch some of the world's most powerful athletes go head-to-head on British soil. One reporter at The Sun gave it a go himself, and he's going to be joining us later. I can't wait for this. Lots to get through. 0344 499 1000. Now, let's go back to defence spending and the whole military story at the moment. It's front and centre. They call it a 1936 moment. Military chiefs, former defence ministers, security advisers, even Boris Johnson demanded 5% of GDP and warned Britain was unprepared for conflict with Russia. Keir Starmer's response, unveiled this morning as one of the last acts of Prime Minister, is 2.69%. That's woefully short. By 2030, 9 billion quid's worth of short of our closest NATO allies. How has it gone so badly wrong? We were top of the tree, front of the queue, the leaders, if you like, the country that people looked at. But yeah, the United Kingdom, they sail the seas, they control the skies, they've got tanks coming out of their Watsits, they've got anything you want, they've got military, they deal in the stuff. It's all gone. It's fallen by the wayside. Ted Jeffrey is with us, co-founder of Defence on the Brink, which is a campaign group pushing for higher and faster levels of spending on defence. How are you doing, Ted?
Yeah, good, thanks, Ian.
Just on this first point, because there's a little bit of me, if I want to just stick my left-wing hat on,
right,
and I had to really look deep in the box for that one today, but there it was. Why do we even need any? I mean, it's the 21st century. You know, we've had the wars and stuff. It's not like the world's at war these days. So why do we even bother? You know, we've got a few planes. If it all went pear-shaped, Putin came along, we'll ping one out the sky and everything would be fine.
Yeah. Well, the reality is Putin's already come along. You know, he is conducting, cyber attacks. It might not be the sort of conventional warfare that we're used to. We don't have tanks and ships rolling across the channel, firing at us, invading us. But we do have sort of hybrid warfare. We have grey zone warfare, as they call it, where they're sending, as we've seen, Russian warships patrolling the channel, submarines looking at our undersea data cables, everything that could potentially, if they were deciding to cut cables, attack us in some way, would impact our everyday life. They're probing us at the moment. They're flying their Russian jets into our airspace to see our response.
I was going to say that, so they're sort of teasing it,
exactly,
pushing it a little bit further. And I mean the cyber side of things. I mean that's I hate to sound like the voice of doom or to be too pessimistic, but I mean, that's the one, isn't it? I mean, if you collapsed, for example, the entirety of the NHS database, the country is absolutely screwed. You don't need to shoot anybody to achieve a real impact on something.
Well, this is, I think just the other week we saw that the cyber attack that took place on Jaguar Land Rover was also tied to the Russian state. So this is their way in which they can try and sort of, infiltrate our infrastructure, test the British psyche and response. And at the moment, our response has been pretty lacklustre. I mean, look at the Defence Investment Plan today. We have known for years, since 2022, when Russia stepped into Ukraine and committed that full-scale invasion, we've known the threats that we're facing on the continent of Europe. And although we have given money and aid to Ukraine, you know, to support them in that fight back, which is key and vital, and they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, so we don't have to. What we're not doing is we're not sort of stepping back properly and assessing the situation and going, right, if Ukraine does lose, well, there's nothing stopping Russia pushing forwards into the Baltic and NATO ally states. And if they do, and you know, a lot of people are saying that if there is a peace plan and a ceasefire in Ukraine, Putin will sort of use that as an opportunity to step away, recalibrate, rearm as a country. And I mean, they're spending, you know, we talk about what, 2.5% of our GDP spending on defence. I mean, they're spending about sort of what, 19% plus.
That's
you know,
extraordinary.
it is the fulcrum of their whole economy is this defence industrial base, and no one's suggesting that we need to do that here in Britain. But if we want to create any kind of deterrence, you know, we see reports of ammunition stockpiles depleted. That if we were to go into a full-scale war of any kind, but we would last a day and then our ammunition stockpiles would run out. So the idea that, you know, a defence chief goes to the Prime Minister and says we've got a black hole and a funding gap of 28 billion, not 28 billion to modernise the armed forces, 28 billion to keep us operating at our current capacity.
Wow.
And we're spending 15 billion. Sorry, giving 15 billion.
50 billion.
You know, it's ridiculous.
We were talking to Francis Ducey yesterday, the defence journalist, and he was saying a couple of years, because I said to him, if the Falklands happen tomorrow, and let's be honest, Argentina do make noises on this every now and again. That story is still yet to be played out, one would assume. He said a couple of years ago I'd have said, yeah, we can still just about do what we did back then. He said today we couldn't. We just wouldn't have the capability to defend our own territory. I mean, it doesn't matter that it's on the other side of the world. It's our own territory. We wouldn't be able to get there. And, of course, during the Falklands, whether you were pro or against the whole point of the Falklands, it was a sovereign territory that was invaded by a foreign government, and we had the right to go and defend it. It wasn't a kind of Iraq moment where there was controversy over the rights and wrongs. That was largely seen as a right to defend, and we had I remember seeing the boats leaving and the planes going over, and it was a proper response, a proper military response. The idea that we couldn't do that now, I mean, that's outrageous.
It's frightening. And you know, on the issue of the Falklands, yes, we probably would be able to sort of muster together a successful operation in order to reclaim the Falklands were there to be an invasion. But even if there was to be an invasion, that would be a big distraction for our military, which would leave us sort of quite as an open goal for another adversary, such as Russia, to sort of commit an attack on our country.
But you don't have to worry about any of this now, because this is all in the past. Because Keir Starmer made a big announcement this morning. Everything's tickety-boo. He's putting loads of money in. He's going to leave office, and everything's going to be all right.
Well, no,
and then he's going to be head of NATO as well. So.
Oh, yes, exactly. But it's the defence investment plan that he has presented today, and that Dan Jarvis, the Defence Secretary, is now sort of addressing the House with. It's not a plan. It's not a plan for modernisation, as he likes to make it out. It's a plan for what I like to call some managed decline. Because essentially one of the key headlines was that it was the destroyers are out and the drones are in. And that is great as a soundbite, but actually you read the substance and what you realise is that they're going to be scrapping the sort of Type 45 destroyer, i.e., as we all know, HMS Dragon. HMS Dragon, very useful for air defence.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have in this country, we're sort of sitting duck as an island. If people want to fire hypersonic, ballistic missiles, we might be able to rely on NATO allies, in Europe to defend us. But we don't have any effective air missile deterrent system like, the Iron Dome, for instance, and the Type 45 destroyer that they want to scrap. What will we be left with?
Yeah. So what's the? I mean, you mentioned that phrase "managed decline." I mean, is that what it is? I mean, what's
essentially? Yeah. Because.
But is it managed decline? Is the manifestation of this is managed decline? But is it like a policy where they've sat there in the Defence Department along with the Prime Minister and all the key players and gone, right, we are literally going to just smash the Defence Department up. We don't need it.
I don't think it's that calculated, but look, the money is out there to fund defence properly. It's a political choice not to. And as we know, the political choice over the past few years, since Keir Starmer's been in power, has been on net zero. The billions of pounds that they inject into net zero, things like £22 billion on carbon capture. You know, there's things like the NEET crisis as well in this country is costing us 125 billion every year. Yeah. And then on top of that, the money, I think we get a sort of net loss of about 4 billion on net zero every year. So he is a prisoner of his left-wing backbenchers who don't want to be spending on defence and want to be prioritising welfare and net zero.
See, I thought if Andy Burnham came... I mean, this obviously isn't going to happen, but if Andy Burnham came in and, right, that net zero department, you know, Ed Miliband, come here, Ed, I want to shake your hand. Thanks for all your work. Sod off. End of story. We'll close the department. We might come back to it in a few years, and if we can afford to have more windmills and stuff, fantastic. And if it's better for everybody, we'll give it a go later. But right now, we need to put... So that money would fill a huge black hole in the Defence Department.
Yeah, absolutely. It would give us the sort of uplift that we... It would give us the uplift that we need to be where we should be. This is the thing. And it is not necessarily going to... We're going to have to find a lot more money over the next decade. I mean, NATO allies suspect that there could be some form of an attack by Russia on NATO by 2030. And today, they're announcing plans for funding about 3.5% of our GDP by 2035. 5 years after, we're supposed to have been attacked, and then because of the Article 5 collective response, we will perhaps be at war. So it seems like the thing with this government, and previous governments as well, all we seem to be doing is funding for yesterday's war rather than tomorrow's.
And our guest yesterday was saying that there is also if you throw into the right amount of money into defence, if we were top of the European pile, as it were, in terms of money, there is another factor in that people are more keen to... Your status changes as a country. People are more keen to trade with you. You look like the leader of the pack. You are the country that is showing everybody else how it should be done. So there's another a positive knock-on effect.
And we would have such a better relationship with, you know, our American allies, with Donald Trump. You know, I think... although Donald Trump and Keir Starmer were ideologically on different pages, I think Trump could have forgiven Starmer on a lot of his flaws if he'd seen Britain taking a more leading role as a kind of leading partner in the European sort of section of NATO. But at the moment, I mean, the NATO rearming league table puts us sort of 31st out of, you know, 32 countries in terms of how we're doing in rearming the nation. And the only country below us is Iceland, who doesn't have an army, which is just embarrassing.
I was just trying to think about Iceland.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything about it. Bjork, the singer.
There we go.
There you go. That's Iceland for you, wasn't it? Magnus Magnusson, the fellow that used to present Mastermind. Iceland. Frozen sausage rolls. Iceland, you know.
Yes.
So there you go. But that's where we're at.
Along
we're
those
in
lines,
that thing. In terms of the other side that we talked about a little earlier, Ted, that really fascinates me is the cyber stuff. Is that fast becoming more of an issue? Is our future wars? Because you might think that if you were Russia, that you would go, well, forget about the tanks and the planes. We're going to go, you know, full on cyber. Yes, that really will make the difference.
Well, I think...
Are we prepared in that department?
Well, no. That's the thing. Because we haven't been... This is, you know, this is the first time, and we have to take at least some positives from the Strategic Defence Review that came out last year, the Defence Investment Plan, which has come out today, is that we are starting to think more about, right, look, how have Ukraine managed to deal with, you know, the Russian invasion? How can we learn the lessons? And things like cyber, but in particular drones. You know, tanks, we've got, you know, £1 billion tanks in Russia that are being destroyed by £10,000 drones. You You know, this is how warfare has changed, and that's what we need to start thinking about investing, not losing the old sort of weapon, the old frigates and destroyers.
Sure.
We don't want to lose that. We want to work out how we can, you know, have the drones, the new technology accompanying that alongside.
Well, Iran did this, didn't they? They were using these sort of almost Argos-like
the Shaheed drones,
yes, which were not, you know, up there as they're not about to win any awards at the International Drone Show. However, they will do a bit of damage, and they'll cause a problem if you've got enough of them floating around.
And it caused Donald Trump a lot of geopolitical problems as well on the world stage. I mean, it really, the Shaheed drones, essentially, I could say, are responsible for pressuring Donald Trump to the negotiating table.
Well, somebody I spoke to a while ago who works in kind of military intelligence said, you know, when it comes to the hacking thing, globally, the hacking problem, it's either a Russian or, bizarrely, spotty kid in a bedsit with a bad hairstyle, sits on the spectrum, got too much porn and too many screens, but are very good at somehow hacking into stuff. There's these two lads in the last few days that they've talking about that have done incredible damage. TfL, I think, were collared. M&S got nabbed in this respect. Why don't we just hire those guys? Because they do get hired, some of these people, don't they?
Well, we've got a crisis of, you know, young people, the 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in education, employment or training, about 1 million or so, and we have to find ways to look at also the next generation and say, this is, we no longer have this this peace dividend, the Cold War peace dividend. You know, we now have to start thinking about how we have a national conversation with everyone about the nature of the way the world's changed, what we need to prepare for as a society and as a collective. Essentially, it's the old kind of JFA quote, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I think my generation, the Zoomers, who sit on and play Fortnite and Call of Duty and video games, you know, get them taught how to use drones. You know, I mean, that seems like
remarkably like my generation. Listen, Ted, great to see you.
Pleasure.
We will speak again. Ted Jeffrey with us. Ted is co-founder of Defence on the Brink. You can look up a lot of the great work they've done and the essays and the pieces that are on. There's a website, of course, you can look up and find out more detail. It's all there. Thank you to Ted. More from you on the way. 0344 499 1000.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Simon in Skelmersdale says, now that we've very publicly shown the world we have no capable military, will the government at least enact emergency measures to force local councils to allow white flags to be flown from lampposts and public buildings? It's a really good point, isn't it? Yeah, we're just surrendering everywhere. Doesn't matter where you look. That may well be the answer. It does seem extraordinary that, as Ted was saying, that the money is kind of there. The money is there if you wanted to put it there, but it's used in other areas, and you can add it all up. And I'm only going to say apart from like the net zero budget, I know nobody is suggesting you don't have an environmental consideration in your government policy. That's obvious. And if you find something that is cleaner and cheaper, then yeah, great. Keep our eye on it, like the Chinese are doing. The Chinese are going, yeah, we've got some stuff that's cheaper and cleaner. But in the meantime, we're going to use what's there. And we're certainly not going to cut off our nose to spite our face by putting every single buck into that one department. So the money is there. And then you can look at all the other departments. And if you add it all together, because every time you mention it to a minister, you say, what about immigration hotels? They go, yeah, it's 4, 5, 6, no, was it 5, about 7 million a day, about 2.5 billion a year or something like that. Sounds a lot, they always say, but, you know, it's not that much in the grander scale. But they tell you that about every... You could pick 10 items, and each one, they would give you the same answer. Sounds a lot, but in the grander scale... Add it all together, guys. It becomes an awful lot of money. 0344 499 1000. Are we doing the voice of doom here? Are we doing the voice of doom here, Finn? Yeah, shall we do it now? Yeah, shall we do it now? I'm going to talk to Paul in Manchester in just a second. This is day 10 of the voice of doom. Have we got a winner? So, this was the voice we played you.
Any of the noble aspirations.
These are some of the guesses. Mike Pompeo, no. Todd Blanche, no. Edward Kennedy, J.D. Vance, no. Virginia Bottomley, no. Frank Charles Carlucci, no. Mark Rutte, no. Ernest Maple. Didn't he just come up as a... Former Transport Secretary who invented the M1 and double yellow lines and parking meters, by the way. No, it's not him. George Bush, Mark Carney, Matthew Whitaker, Pete Hegseth, Gerald Ford, no, none of those. Donald Trump, no. And then somebody suggested Dwight D. Eisenhower. Let's hear the voice again, Amy.
Any of the noble aspirations.
No, it's not him either. We haven't got a winner. Day 10 moves to day 11. It's back then. And we'll hopefully get one. Well, I say hopefully. We had the longest the voice of doom has ever run for is about 21 days. Will this one beat the lot? Stand by. Paul's in Manchester. How you doing, Paul?
I'm all right, Ian. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, fire away. What have you got for us?
Yeah, Shabina Mahmood.
Yeah.
She should be held accountable for all these decisions, and they're absolutely pie-in-the-sky decisions that she's in control of. We, as a country, we haven't got the infrastructure to manage everybody that's coming over in however they're getting here, whatever they're getting here for. We can't even support ourselves. We can't even house ourselves. This is just...
I can hear it in your voice, Paul, because we're not... In fact, now I'm short of words, because it's so ridiculous, right? This is so stupid. It's not just stupid, it's dangerous and offensive. You know, we've got homeless people, we've got military personnel that are sleeping in shop doorways, and we're giving away £250,000 houses to 80 asylum seekers. I mean, that to me is... It doesn't make you a bad person because you raise that as being a problem.
I can't even get my 23-year-old out of the house. not because he wants to leave.
No, I know, but if he wanted to, he wouldn't be able to.
It's not, is it? It's going to get someone else. Is going to get it. Someone that's not entitled to it. To be quite honest.
Yeah, completely. And of course, what the government are doing this was not even a trick because we see it through it instantly. They go, oh, we're going to close all the hotels. Well, OK, and then what?
They've got to go somewhere.
Then you put the people somewhere else, and it might be a couple of quid cheaper than the hotel, but it's still... You're literally just moving the problem. And politicians wonder why we don't have... Yeah, well, politicians wonder why we don't have trust in them, right? And there's a very good reason.
Well, Trump came in and said, I'm going to do this, and he did it, and now look...
Well, he solved their immigration problem, and they're landlocked with the biggest problem, which was Mexico. We're an island, for God's sake. We should have no trouble protecting this place.
If you haven't got a passport, you should not be coming into this land. There should be just, that's it, the end. There shouldn't be like, oh, well, we've got these people that say they should be allowed in. They've come from places where there's absolutely no.
Well, if you've come from Albania, then sorry, that's not okay. That can't happen. If you've come from Iran, even prior to this latest squabble that we've been all having with Iran, prior to that, it might not be the best country for some people to live in, and I can understand why there are Iranians who think I quite like to leg it, but it's not a country that would be on the list of places you would have to leave. And that list goes on. I mean, there's loads of African countries where I just think there are people of certain age groups, mainly the 18 to 30s, that look at the world today and go, I live in Ethiopia, I live in Chad, I live in whatever country you want to pick, but those kind of countries that we know are familiar to the list of people that come in, and they just think, I'd like to change my life and I'm going to live somewhere else. And it's that simple.
Can I just say as well, the £250,000 houses that these 83 people, 83 migrants have been housed in, that doesn't stop there. The support network that joins that migrant that lives in that house, is huge, it's massive, it's all money.
Oh, completely. You have access to
your money,
education, you have access to medicine, infrastructure, all of it. And you won't, while you're in the house, you won't be earning any money anyway, so everything else will be paid for.
They get translators, they get benefits, you name it, it's all there. I'm not sure they have to pay a bill.
I don't think there's a bill to pay, is there? If you've got no money, you're not going to pay a bill.
They don't pay electric. I'm sure the government.
I know. It's in any other world, Paul, we'd be giggling at this, but of course it's not funny because it's our money, it's dangerous, it lacks any kind of consideration or intellectual thought from politicians. It makes no sense. Nobody can work it out. Even a left-winger on a good day will tell you that this is nonsense.
If I took my family over to Turkey and said, could you find me a house? They go, yeah, there's the plane. You're going back home, mate.
That's very true,
They wouldn't go and get me a house, would they? They wouldn't go say and bring the rest of your family over, mate.
But even if, if I was 18 and somebody said, oh, yeah, you can go to Morocco for 2 years and stay in the Four Seasons for 2 years, we'll only give you 50 quid a week, but I'd go, yeah, I'll take that at 18.
Oh, yeah,
I'll lay on the beach for 2 years.
It's £2.5 grand to fly for me. In that. I go on a boat.
Yeah, I hear you. Paul, love it. Love the incredulity as well from Paul in Manchester. Thank you to him. Let's go to Grace down in London. How are you doing, Grace?
I'm very blessed, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Far away.
Well, I don't think many people come here to lie on beaches. I think it's inevitable that people are going to move. People have always moved. Our ancestors moved around, and I'm afraid part of the reason that people come is that our world is very, very unjust, and that doesn't mean I feel they're entitled to come here just because they want to, but we should consider that we are actually really privileged to be born into a country that has education and healthcare and the basics of life that some people elsewhere don't have. So it's inevitable some people will move. I do think the government should lock up for life anyone who has been involved in this trafficking. I do think the government should go to some of the places that people are coming from and warn them that actually the streets aren't quite as paved with gold as they might have been led to believe. But ultimately, our government's going to actually have to think about making the world slightly less unjust. I know it sounds incredibly airy-fairy and pie in the sky, but there are lots of countries that are seriously indebted, far more than we are, with far higher interest rates than our national debt, and our government could do something about that unjust debt, which has accumulated in ways that are not fair. And if it were the case that people were able to develop their own countries more, then there would be slightly fewer people desperate to move around. But I have to also say, someone said earlier, if a dog is born in a stable, it doesn't become a horse.
Yes.
Now, I've done a degree in biomedical sciences, but you don't need to do that to know that a dog and a horse are different species, whereas human beings are the same species. And we might like to think, well, we're born in this nice, civilized, advanced country, so we are inherently so much more civilized and we're so much better than other people. But that's nonsense. People are influenced by all manner of
Well, indeed. It's an old trope that's wheeled out, isn't it, when people say, I'm British, and somebody then replies, well, you're not really British, are you? And it's offensive to quite a lot of people, because somebody like, was it Rishi Sunak that had this debate, or Priti Patel? I'm trying to think who it was.
It definitely did happen around Rishi Sunak, but it's probably happened for all.
Yes, I think so.
I mean, ultimately, the values that we often think are really great in this country came here from somewhere else. You know, we had pagan people and Roman people in Britain beating each other up, but then the teachings of a brown man, i.e. Jesus, came over here, and we decided, actually, no, we ought to be civilized after all. And it's not that we as white British people are just genetically more civilized than people in another part of the world. We're lucky to be born into a country that has higher values than some other places. But again, each person is different. So there are British people who don't adhere to those values either. We know that there are plenty of white British criminals. There might be a bit less violence here because we've had centuries of some better values than some other places have. But each individual person has their own behaviour and their own choices, and plenty of people who come in do marvellous things. So you cannot compare human beings to dogs and horses.
All right, Grace, thank you very much indeed for that. Jesus was a brown man. I thought Jesus was from Southend or something, wasn't he? Was he brown? Jesus brown? I thought he was known as Pasty J. Was he brown? Was he really brown? I don't know. I don't care, to be honest. It doesn't really matter. Still Jesus, isn't he? So that's fine. But I hear what Grace is saying. It's another view, and that's what we're all about here. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Welcome back. Loads more comment from you. This in from Ian in Eastleigh, who says it is important to remember that the Labour Party didn't just change their leader, they had to outsource their leader. Interesting point. Dan in Kent says Burnham can get a mandate of 10 years in, I think I should say can't, because he has 3 years to bankrupt the country into war, where the Constitution says quite clearly elections are cancelled in times of war, which is sort of really what's kept Zelensky, I guess, in power. Now, secrets of the art of sumo wrestling revealed as it comes to the UK, including why stars never wash their loincloths. Can you believe this? I didn't believe it, and so we thought, well, let's get Tom Bryden down. Tom is feature writer and an amazing feature writer at The Sun, who went and gave it a go, Tom.
I did indeed. How'd it go?
This is great. I love this about... I love it about working in this building, because there is a sort of an ethos. And if you work for The Sun, you don't just go, oh, we'll sit at our desk and write a piece on it. Somebody, either you yourself or an editor goes, no, it doesn't work like that. Get out there and do it. So you went, all right then. Grabbed your loincloth and off you went.
That's right. I mean, I had to borrow one, unfortunately.
Really?
But,
You don't have one?
Not really. But as you know, they... you were mentioning there is a special fact about them. Apparently mine wasn't like that. I don't know if you want to go into the fact just yet, because it's quite a...
You see, because I'm looking at some images there. So...
Yeah.
That's a kind of... I mean, that's you fighting a pretty large sort of...
Having a go.
Elephant-style guy. And I'm not trying to be deliberately offensive, but these are... they're not big in the sense that, WWE wrestler is big. It's not The Undertaker or,
No.
Steve Austin or something. It's that these are like fat guys, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair, Finn?
It's a compliment.
I'm allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Fatty. They're big guys. So, do they wear? Because they seem to... Is it like a rubber thing they're wearing rather than a cloth?
I think it was cloth. It's sort of silk. You wrap it around loads. With me, it was a few more times than they're used to as well. And the trick, well, not the trick, but sort of the luck comes from never washing it. So they're nicknamed a mowashi in Japanese.
OK.
We call them a no-washi, hence the...
Well, don't we just call it a mucky pair of pants?
Or that.
Or that.
Or that.
So they never wash them?
So they say.
Does it go... I mean, does it get passed on to other generations of sumo wrestlers?
I don't know, actually.
Unwashed?
I don't know many generations of father-son sumo wrestlers. I know the guy I took on, really nice guy.
Yeah.
In his 30s. But he'd been sumo wrestling since he was 9 years old.
Wow.
Having been scouted.
So they're doing this at the Albert Hall, aren't they?
They were in October. So this time around they're doing it in Greenwich.
In
for
Greenwich.
another tournament.
OK.
Slightly smaller scale, but
Tokyo
still
Nights
just
it's
as
called,
fun.
is that right?
Yes.
So you went down there to give it a go. Are there any rules to this thing other than there's a circle, try and push that bloke out of the circle?
Not really.
Is that it?
Not really. So it's loser is first one out, or first one to touch the floor with anything other than your feet,
right?
Basically.
So I'm going to take a guess here because I'm looking at you giving it a good go in these images, and so you can't you can't just like it looks there. If you just bit that guy, he'd be gone. But you're not allowed to do that.
He wouldn't feel anything if I bit him.
He wouldn't really.
He wouldn't.
Yeah.
He's got so much protection.
Yes.
And also, bear in mind, I mean, you can see when he's doing that, he's not trying one bit. I'm putting all my strength into that, which I admit is not loads, but
now,
nonetheless.
You are being, at that point, it looks like sort of suffocated almost by a fair proportion of man boobage. I mean, because I'd say these are big guys, and they're big in the sort of unhealthy sense.
Yeah, they are. So they eat 10,000 calories a day.
10,000 calories a day. The only person I know that gets close to that is Finn, our producer. So in terms of lifestyle, I mean, are these are rock stars, right? They are. Their home. They're known. Are they rich? These guys?
Rich, I don't know, because there are certainly a lot of them. I think at the top, at the very top level, the top leagues, you get loads. But unless you're right at the top, it's a pretty Spartan life because you've got to train pretty much every day. No girlfriends allowed. No phones allowed.
You're not allowed a girlfriend?
Apparently not.
Really?
Apparently not. I mean, do they sneak out? Maybe. I hope they do, for their sake.
Well, yes. I mean, I can see logistical problems in that department, but, yeah, the idea that it's banned... I mean, the reason I say... I can understand, like, so England are playing tomorrow night, OK? You can guarantee Declan Rice is not, at the moment, sitting in a KFC in New York. They're not drinking fizzy drinks, even the ones that sponsor the tournaments. They're not doing any of that stuff. These guys... I mean, you say they don't have any phones, they don't have any girlfriends, but they can surely just eat what the hell they like, right?
Pretty much. But at the same time, it's pretty regimented, I think. So, actually, when I was speaking to him, he said the eating is a struggle because it's like training every day. You train sumo in the morning, then you've got a good few hours non-stop eating. Kilogram of meat, dozen eggs, this thing, strange thing called natto. It's like this fermented soybean, which apparently is absolutely disgusting.
So you have to keep eating?
You have to. You absolutely have to. Because otherwise, well, I say you're done for, but...
So are they...
So strong
I mean,
as well.
So they are strong, and I mean, it seems odd when you look at a sumo wrestler to go, yeah, he's really fit, that guy. When I look at Jude Bellingham, I can go, that bloke is definitely fit. He's run, I don't know how many miles in a 90-minute match, and he doesn't look out of breath, and he can score goals on target, and he's a genius and all the rest of it, and he speaks Spanish. So he's got all of that going on. These guys, I don't look at them and go, they're real proper athletes.
Depends on the sport. So, unfortunately, could they run very fast? Probably not. I think the ring is only a few metres across, and it's a matter of two rhinos running against each other as hard as they can. And just getting the momentum as well. And then what they do is, or what they did to me is, at least, is sort of reach round and try and get a spin in or something like that. So, you know, they're big, but they've got their weight very much on their...
Were you scared?
On their feet.
Not at all?
Of course not. Apart from when I faced them directly, and it was like, hang on a minute.
Yeah. Were they nice guys?
Really nice.
Really nice.
Could not be nicer.
Did they speak English?
Not at all.
Not at all. But they were good. They were good.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up and all the rest of it. Apparently, the training these guys go through, one part of the training requires them to do the splits. Is that true?
As far as I'm aware, but they certainly squat
That's what
down.
Finn's just told me.
Certainly could be. They squat down really far.
They can't do the splits. I mean, how flexible can you be when you're that kind of...
They could get down. I don't know if they could...
Get up again.
Back up.
Yeah. Listen, great stuff, and what an experience. You've been sumo wrestling.
It's one for the, you know, puts it on the obituary.
I mean, well, I was going to say, it's a little... but it's not normally on a bucket list, but it is now, isn't it?
It is now.
In 20 years, someone's going to come up, someone's going to mention sumo, Ray. You're going to go, yeah, I did that.
Put it on the CV.
What? Yeah. Tom, you did what? Well, stop, Tom, tell us. You can retell the story. Did he... So he didn't let you just knock him out the ring? He didn't...
There was no question. I don't think he was trying. I think he was stood completely still, no effort whatsoever. I'm putting full force into him. Then he decided my time's up. Sort of drops
My
me,
time is up.
throws me to the ground.
That's
and that was that.
Stunning. Listen, Tom, good to see you again. Thank you. Tom Bryden, feature writer at The Sun. Tried a bit of sumo. It's on Greenwich Borough Hall until the 8th of July. It is Tokyo Nights. Full-on sumo. Tom will not be there, though, on the night. We might be in the audience, but he's not going to be in the ring, as it were. Let's go back to your calls. Loads of comments coming through. This is Matt in Cheshire. How you doing, Matt?
Hi, good afternoon, Ian.
Afternoon to you. Fire away.
Conversation.
Yeah.
I watch a bit of sumo myself on NHK Japanese news. Yeah. They have the Grand Sumo tournaments on.
So do you watch it because you are, like, genuinely like it, or you're just a bit, like, it kind of, you know, something you can't quite stop looking at?
I just like the tradition of it. I like the tradition of how they get themselves into that shape.
Yeah.
And they're schooled for years. We think they just sort of eat loads of calories and then just jump out there, don't they? But they train for decades, some of them. So it's quite amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I suppose if you are fighting somebody who's a similar size to you, then, you know, there is obviously a strength factor, and it's like for like. If you did it or I did it, and Tom, the journalist we just spoke to, did it, you stand no chance. But is there... I don't know whether there is athleticism in it or just about being a big lad who can push at the right time.
No, it's about power and speed off the mark, and it's about, like, they have to be that big to be able to cope. Some of them are 80, 90 pounds lighter than some of the others. But if you're quick off the mark and you've got fast hands, you can drop the gigantic giant quite easily.
Yeah. But none of that is why you called, Matt. But it's an interesting little diversion for us.
Yeah, Andy Burnham is going to do nothing about immigration.
No, I believe you're correct.
Anybody that watches YouTube in the last 4 years will see that Manchester is an immigrant-infested cesspit. There are Middle Eastern men following young white girls around at 3 o'clock in the morning when they've had a drink. And he has allowed that. So he basically...
When you say he's allowed that, and I'm only going to throw this at you, you know, in terms of the balance of it...
I understand.
There will be, many people say, well, hang on a second, the average girl goes out in Manchester, doesn't experience that. There's clearly some dodgepots out there, and nobody wants to see it. Why would it... But firstly, there's that. Secondly, why would that be Andy Burnham's fault?
because that he allows them to lurk in the city centre. He's part of, his relationship as mayor with the police is a factor in allowing that to happen. Those people didn't used to be there. It just used to be drunken white lads who might chat them up and they'd probably tell them to get lost. But now you've got men from the Middle East sat outside nightclubs at 3 o'clock in the morning. And there are YouTubers in Manchester that go around following these men around and exposing them.
Yeah, I have seen some of that. I'm always intrigued what the numbers are like, and this is not to in any way, because we know, because of some of the horrendous stories we've had. Divide them, by the way.
No, I'll do a census next time at 3 o'clock in the morning or something. No, it's not. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not fair, full stop, on anybody. Even older people who are going to the theatre feel intimidated. My mum and dad went to watch Daryl Hall and John Oates about 3 years ago, and they went to Manchester and they said it was absolutely filthy, and they'd never seen it like that before, and they couldn't believe what had happened.
Yeah.
And I said, wakey, wakey. I said, this is where we're at now. This is Labour's filth.
Yeah.
And it's now national. And, we've maybe got, I think he'll last maybe a year, and then I think he'll be gone as well. I think he might be a Liz Truss type character, Andy Burnham.
And interestingly, Hall and Oates have never been back to Manchester, which tells us quite a lot, doesn't it? So.
No, because they heard
they've gone.
Yeah,
She's gone. They've gone.
And they fell out as well, didn't they?
I think they did. Yeah, I think they did. I think you might be right about that. It's a great point, Matt. Thank you very much indeed for that, Matt in Cheshire. We started off with Sumo. We finished on Hall and Oates. There you go, with the important bit in the middle. 0344 499 1000. Kevin O'Sullivan's here after the news at 4, and we'll chat to Kev shortly to find out what's going on Drive. Coming up on 10 to 4, this is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. Sorry, something's strange happened here because we work at Talk, and strange, funny things happen all the time in the nicest possible way. Andrew is in Hertfordshire, who's got it all sorted out. Andrew, what are you thinking? Hi.
Yeah, you spoke earlier quite brilliantly about those houses. Next time you speak to Maggie Oliver, ask her how many of the rape gang victims have been given a free brand new house.
Fair point. It's a fair point. They're probably like so many others, sitting on a list that will never be realised, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's funny where Keir Starmer's priorities are, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, in relation to the migration, we could go on forever, but it's not about the what. We all know what we want to do. It's about the how.
Yep.
So we have to target the type of companies who, sometimes through no fault of their own, are employing them. Delivering drivers, all the company directors, for every 100 people they employ that are illegal migrants that came here and are claiming asylum, we put a lay on their house. What that means is when they sell their house, the money goes to the government. Anybody who employs someone who is an illegal immigrant, we put a lay on their house, and their business, we put a lay on the business as well.
There's already as I understand it, maybe Andrew can clarify this, there's already a fairly substantial fine, isn't there, if you are caught employing an illegal immigrant?
Yeah, but it's never applied, and it's time to get very positive about it.
Yeah.
The other thing is we have to advertise quite clearly that if you are a single male who threw your documents away, who entered the country illegally, then claimed asylum, we don't want you here.
But isn't that... Now, the answer to that is always, if you are claiming asylum, you don't have to... by definition, you don't have to have a document.
OK, you
So
entered...
if you've left a war zone, you're not going to think about picking up your passport.
I don't know. Well, who's France at war with?
Well, France doesn't count, does it? Because that would be an argument that only France or only Italy, for example, takes every asylum seeker.
Yeah, they're in. It's like the ones with the children. You're a mother. You're on terra firma, and you put a child in a boat. The minute you hit this country, the child goes into care to Rochdale, and you are prosecuted. We've actually got this the wrong way around. We're always finding an excuse not to do it.
Right, and I'm just throwing at you what the current state of play is.
Yeah, I agree. The current state of play, we need to draw a line. The reason Trump solved it was in the first week he was in office, they took the people back to South America. They put them in orange jumpsuits. They shaved their heads, and they showed them going into that maximum security jail. Do you know what? People weren't that keen to go back into America.
Do you think that will remain the case?
Yeah. We've got no action at all. Nobody's doing anything. We're all just hanging around the edges.
Yeah.
If we call the Pakistani commissioner in tomorrow and we shut down the embassy here and expel him and everybody to do with the Pakistani embassy until they take all the prisoners in the jails and all illegal immigration from Pakistan, that's the only thing that's going to do it.
But most illegal immigration isn't coming from Pakistan, of course.
No, it's not. But let's just
in
use
fact,
that as
when
an
you look
example.
at the latest data, hardly any, in fact, if any, are coming from Pakistan.
Excellent. But there will be some, and they're on the border with Afghanistan. So if you want your embassy opened up, take these people back, drop them off on the border for us.
So if you did
like that, Ian.
If you did that, so if you got every foreign criminal, whether they're from Pakistan or whether they're from Spain, how would that? Would you empty the jails of those people and just fly them to the country and land uninvited in their airports?
No, they have commercial flights to and from Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
So those flights will be only used to take prisoners back to Pakistan until they're all gone.
But why only Pakistan?
I'm just using it as an example.
Okay.
I'll just use it, as an example. Just using it as an example.
Because I think... What was number one on the list of foreign criminals? Was it Albanians?
Fantastic. Fantastic. The Albanian ambassador, he's home. All his staff are home.
Yeah.
And until they take them all. And that's the end of it.
But that only solves, and I think when it comes to foreign criminality, I mean, that's another basket case, isn't it, that nobody's been able to solve. For some reason, even when you've served your sentence. I mean, I was reading the story of there were several points on this I couldn't quite believe, Andrew. One of the rape gang offenders who had raped, I can't remember what the figure was, but it was in double digits. And he was sentenced in 2011, I think it was, and he's due for release soon. And I thought, hang on, that was 15 years. How did you only get 15 years for a crime that heinous? And you were that prolific in carrying it. I mean, it's just extraordinary. And he, I think, was penciled in to be deported, and apparently now he's not going to be deported. I don't know I can't remember what the specific reasons were. Andrew, I've got to move just because we've hit the clock and Kevin O'Sullivan has walked into the studio. One quick comment coming in from you. And this is from Ken in Oldham, who says, how long before they start to travel to Strasbourg? Oldham, number 10, Strasbourg. Yeah, he'd love that, Andy Burnham, wouldn't he? Because they do it from Brussels once a month, nip over to Strasbourg. Is there going to be a number 10 everywhere? At the end of every road, Kev?
Do you know what's unfair about this? As I've been thinking about this. First of all, what struck me, I think, over 24 hours, and by the way, polls already are revealing that long-suffering Brits are feeling the same as me, was the sheer asinine emptiness of that speech he gave yesterday. He put this video out today, said, are you as excited as I am over the number 10 Downing Street North? No.
Why would you be excited
Why
about
are we excited about that? So his vision is a new address for the Prime Minister in Wigan.